Meeting this evening. It's meeting number 4491. I'd like to start the meeting by doing a welcome to country. I would like to show my respect and acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, of elders past, present and emerging, on which this meeting takes place.
We thank you, Lord, for the honour of being called by our fellow citizens to this office of honour and trust. Give us grace diligently and honourably, free from private interest or prejudice, to discharge the duties entrusted to us to the common good and as in your sight, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Okay, attendance. I believe we have all councillors present this evening. Declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? Councillor Collins first.
Non-pecuniary, non-significant for 8.1.
8.1 and
non-pecuniary, non-significant for 4.1.
We had Councillor McLaughlin. Do you wish to?
Yes, I have a non-pecuniary, non-significant interest in item 4.12, as some of the applicants are known to me, and also in item 8.1, as I was previously the president of one of the preschools involved in that process.
Thank you. Are there any further declarations for this evening? Yes, Councillor Prasoi.
Mr. Mayor, I have a non-significant, non-pecuniary interest in item 4.2, one of the residents I've served on several committees with.
Right. Any further? Yes, Councillor McLaughlin.
Sorry, I forgot to mention that in regard to 4.12, I'll leave the meeting, but I don't feel it's necessary for 8.1.
Right, okay. If there's no further declarations of interest, then we move to confirmation of the minutes from the previous meeting, meeting number 4490. Is there a mover? Councillor McLaughlin, seconded by Councillor Sanderson. Is there any debate? Any questions? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried unanimously. We now move, just before we start, yes, I note your call, Councillor Sanderson. We have several speakers this evening, and I'm mindful of their time waiting online. So we'll try and deal with matters as efficiently and try to get those matters as early as possible. Councillor Sanderson, you wish to raise?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, could I move that we bring items 3.1, that's the notice of motion regarding delegation of the DCU, 4.1, Nelson Parade, 4.2, Gaza Avenue, 4.10, the Local Traffic Committee, 7.1, Love Gladesville Facebook, and 8.1, Licensing and Community.
In regards to 8.1, the person that was asking to speak is no longer wishing to do that, so we can leave that at its current position.
All right, well then I'll leave it as I've read 3.1 through to 7.1. I move that we bring those forward in the agenda.
Is there a second to that? Councillor Miles. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried unanimously. Okay, so we move to item 3.1 and we have a speaker, Dr. Sharp. Could he be admitted to do a presentation? No more than 3 minutes, please, Dr. Sharp. Against, declare it carried unanimously. Okay, so we move to item. Dr. Sharp, you're getting feedback through your system. Okay. Dr. Sharp, you have 3 minutes, and we're talking about item 3.1, delegation determination of LEPs to DCU.
Thank you, and I'm unmuted. That's lovely.
Could I just ask you to unmute, or sorry, there's some feedback. Could that be?
He needs to stop his live feed from Facebook.
Okay. Could you stop your live feed, please, Dr. Sharp, because we were getting that feedback, and then come back in. You're on mute at the moment, so.
Is that good now?
Yes, that's perfect. Thank you. Sorry.
Right. Okay, I'm speaking in support of the recommendation for council to reduce the number of objections required for referral by the DCU from 4 or more to 2 or more. Council's meetings are public meetings, allowing we who fund council through our rates to see how council operates and how decisions are made, and I value this. The number of objections received by council in response to a DA is merely a crude measure of the level of concern in the community. And I accept that sometimes there may be little valid concern when there's only one objection, but increasing the number of objectors to 4 or more before the matter is discussed in public ignores 2 important aspects. Only a proportion of concerned neighbours actually ever submit written objections. In my experience, many don't, either because they're awed by the prospect of lodging a formal objection or because they're concerned to maintain a friendly relationship with the proponent. When there's only a small number of objections, say less than 4, it may be because the proposed work impacts only on the immediate neighbours. It may be that only the house on each side and the one at the rear are impacted, generating only 3 objections. Or in the case of a corner block, such as next to me, only 2 neighbours may be directly impacted. So it's a mistake to measure the seriousness of the impact by the number of objections. The current limit requiring 4 or more trigger a referral ignores the impact on those properties most likely to be affected. Looking at the table of objections, numbers of objections presented to council when the motion was passed on the 14th of September, I was surprised to find that only 23% of all DAs generated even 1 objection. Tonight's proposal to require scrutiny for 2 or more objections would mean that 16% would have required the DCU's attention. I'm happy for my rates to pay for this level of transparency. And for these reasons, I support the proposal to reduce the number of objections required to trigger consideration by the DCU from 4 to 2.
Thank you, Dr. Sharp. Are there any questions of Dr. Sharp? If not, thank you very much for your presentation this evening, Dr. Sharp. And we'll now deal with the matter. Councillor Sanderson, you wish to move your motion?
I wish to move the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Is there a seconder to the motion? Councillor McLaughlin. Over to you, Councillor Sanderson, to speak to your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't really believe this motion requires a great deal of debate. I think Dr. Sharp has set that out extremely well. I once had an experience of a matter going before the DCU as a member of the community. I found it a forum where it gave people the opportunity to understand the perspective of people they may not necessarily agree with. And I think it's important to have those forums. The other thing is, as Dr. Sharp mentioned, is openness of process. And you know, at the end of the day, this is not about saving money. This is about ensuring that development applications in Hunters Hill, which is so important because of not just because of our heritage status, but just you know, the size and the fact that we can afford to be more detailed in these matters. I see it's incredibly important that these forums are allowed, and it's quite interesting actually. I did look at the email that the General Manager sent out this afternoon. In fact, since this matter came into effect, I think there have only been 3 development applications that this would have affected. I'm not familiar with all of them. One of them happens to be 11 de Milchau, and I know that one is of extreme importance given the immense heritage attached to that particular site. I think it is highly important that we bring this threshold down at sure, if there is only one objection, that may well be best dealt with by a member of staff. But when it starts to get complex, I think it's important that, whether parties or objecting parties agree, or whether it's a matter of balancing between the different things they're trying to get out of the process. I think it's very important that there is that forum there where that debate can occur. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Does the seconder wish to speak? No. Any? Yes, Councillor McLaughlin. Yes.
I'll speak after we've heard any opposing views.
Yeah. Okay. Any opposition? Councillor Miles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My problem with this motion really is that it flies in the face of the report that was put to us by the development control team in that September meeting, which was essentially trying to streamline the process of assessing DAs. Just to put a bit of perspective on this, this would mean that even under the old system where council assessed DAs, you would need to get 5 to 6 objectors for it to come to council. This means that there would have to be less objectors than even the old system, which was assessed by council. So, 2 objectors is a fairly low threshold. That could be two objectors from the same household. That could be, something as simple as a trimming of a tree. The whole point of the report that was put to us in September was to try and ease the burden on the assessments from the development control team. So I don't really know why we're revisiting this specific point of something that was recommended to us months ago by the development control team, and it sets the threshold very low for objections. As I said, 2 people can object to pretty much anything, and it's going to cause issues for the development control staff. And it may not seem like there's a lot of assessments that go to the DCU under these circumstances, but really we're talking about hours and hours and hours of staff time over something that could be a trivial complaint. If it is a warranted complaint and there are real issues with the DA, it's going to be over that 4 threshold anyway. So I just don't know why we're making life more difficult for our staff when they had recommended to us not to do that.
Speakers for the motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. When I've had a chance to reflect on this, I think, and Dr. Sharp really hit the nail on the head when he said that the DCU now provides the only opportunity for residents to really discuss their objections or their support of DAs. That process has been taken away from councillors. So this is the only forum that's now available to them at that first stage of the development process. I absolutely see the logic now in only having the 1 objector at delegated level. But to me, the 2 objectors means that the DCU officers can be alerted to the fact that there may be a wider problem. And Dr. Sharp also mentioned the multiple sides of developments that might be needed to be addressed. When looking at the figures, as we saw them for the 1920 DCU list, and moving forward, what we have from September through to December, you can see that by dropping this to 2, you would halve the workload for the DCU unit, and that is quite significant. And so there are major efficiencies to be made there. And as this is now the one of the most important DA panels that we have in council, I think giving the community the opportunity to be heard at that panel is very, very important. So I do support this rescission motion. on the basis of all of those arguments.
Thank you. Is there any speakers against? Councillor Collins.
Look, I think this is already going to happen, so I won't speak long. I will say that this was about making it a little bit more efficient. There is no reason why. I mean, the three people that have put their names on this motion couldn't object to anything that comes, be part of those four that are required. The problem is that now that we drop the bar to 2, that means everything, even if it's completely non-controversial, then everything gets caught up in that. So I think it would be more efficient to try and make sure that the ones that do require a little bit of, to go the DCU are getting enough submissions rather than try to catch all. So I don't see the logic in doing this because, to Dr. Sharp can also make a submission. That counts as one. Find one other person, you got 4. But so this was about saving staff time, making things a bit more efficient. The outcomes are the same. If it's controversial, just find 2 people to object and off it goes. So yeah, this is, I don't see the purpose, but anyway, it's going to happen anyway. So that's my 2 cents.
Is there any further speakers for the motion? Councillor Crassell.
Question, please, Mr. Mayor. Something Councillor Miles said about people from the same household being able to object would you mind clarifying, is that the case? Can 2 people in the one household, do they constitute the 2, or did it have to be from different households?
I'll ask the General Manager to respond to that. I believe that there's no restriction, but General Manager, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Director.
Through you, Mayor, there is no restrictions. A submission coming from anywhere, from a household, is considered as 1. So 2 can come, or maybe 3.
Thank you.
Does that answer? Okay. Is there any further debate? If not, right of reply, Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I think the numbers speak for themselves, and this, unfortunately, the background and reasons, which I always go to a fair amount of trouble to prepare for any notice of motion I bring, were not published in tonight's paper. I believe that they have been distributed to all councillors, but as Councillor McLaughlin rightly pointed out, going from the original threshold we had of 1 objector, this is prior to the motion in September, that we will be in fact halving the number going to the DCU. This is a pretty significant saving, and I'm very happy to see that happen, because I think 1 objector can very easily be handled by staff. The other thing is, in the motion, you'll see there's a bit of a change in wording compared to the earlier resolution. I think that's important because there has been new directions from the Minister, which define how things go to the local planning plan a little bit differently. The way this is wording will cover that. The way the former motion was, or the former resolution was worded, it wouldn't have covered that situation, because it was simply talking about between 4 and 9 objections, rather than as to whether there was some other authority that a matter might be referred to. So I think this is, as well as bringing back, I think, fairness to our residents, so that they have the a proper right to have their concerns aired. As well as that, I think it's a bit of a tidying up of the former motion, so I would commend it.
Okay, that now completes debate on this item. I now put to the vote all those in favour. Against? Declare it carried. Councillor Miles and Collins in opposition. We now move to the next item, item 4.1, and we have speakers for this item. So could we please admit those, Mr. Buffier and Ms. Clark. Who would like to speak first? Mr. Buffy is still coming online, so Ms. Clark, do you want to start? Or
yeah, sure.
you have
Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight in support of the current Property New South Wales 2020 preferred project response for remediation of Nelson Parade. I'm speaking as president of the Nelson Parade Action Group, NPAG, the resident group which has been working for 12 years to get the contamination removed from Nelson Parade. Residents have greeted this proposal with overwhelming relief, but also scepticism, which will only end when this plan is approved and the contamination actually removed. 40 years since residents were first promised the contamination would be removed, we're now hopeful that we will eventually be able to become a normal street freed from notoriety. NPAG has continued to fight this issue despite many setbacks, broken promises and disappointments. Our persistence has been driven by our belief that we knew what was right for the government to do, full removal of contamination, backed up by the 2008 parliamentary inquiry recommendations. The existence of the contamination has resulted in residents' anxiety and uncertainty about its possible health impacts. The well-being of all Nelson Parade residents has been damaged by the effects of stigma, adverse media misinformation, and sensationalism. And this has been compounded by extreme frustration from the failure of successive governments to act. This proposal will successfully achieve the residents' prime goal of full removal, as well as all the preferred outcomes which all residents agreed in February 2018 as being fundamental to resolving this issue, providing safety, certainty, restoration of street value, elimination of stigma, as well as relief of residents' emotional distress. This is a first-rate proposal based on expert advice, incorporating the world's best practice remediation methodology and storage facility. It will significantly contribute to the rehabilitation of the foreshores of the Parramatta River. It addresses environmental concerns and meets the requirements of the EPA management order. The project is cost-effective because sale of the three remediated prime waterfront blocks would allow for offset of remediation costs. Remediation will be complete and permanent, leaving no legacy for future generations. It will resolve a difficult and complex issue that has challenged governments for over 50 years. Moreover, it's said to be shovel-ready and able to start immediately once approved. Community concern about this unresolved problem is widespread, indicated, for example, by 250 people meeting in the town hall in 2018 calling for action. Many people have supported and worked with us to get this far. Mayors Sue Hoopman, Richard Quinn, Mark Bennett and Ross Williams, experts such as Barry Buffier, many councillors, community leaders and Huntersville locals. But now community and council need to send a strong message to the Department of Planning that we do fully support this proposal and we call for its immediate approval and implementation without further delay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Are there any questions of Ms. Clark? If not, we'll now move on to Mr. Buffier. Would you please give your presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and councillors. I wish to speak in support of the recommendation to council. The new remediation action plan now proposes the removal and disposal of all contaminated material from the site. That recommendation is consistent with my recommendation to council when this matter was discussed in June 2019. This is clearly the best option for the residents of Nelson Parade and a great outcome for the Hunters Hill community. I make this observation as a resident of Hunters Hill, but also informed by my experience as Chair and CEO of the New South Wales Environment Protection Authority for 6 years from 2012 to 2018. The previous proposal to encapsulate on-site was a very inferior solution, which did not remediate the site, but merely contained the contamination on-site in perpetuity. The report itself identifies containment on-site
should only be considered when other options higher on the soil remediation hierarchy are not applicable. On this particular site, excavation and disposal provides a high level of certainty in achieving the desired remediation outcome, as the shallow geology of the site enables relatively easy access and excavation. The solution proposed now allows the site to be returned to residential purposes and removes the stigma from surrounding properties and hopefully restores them to their true value. I do not believe the transport of this material from the site en route to disposal poses any significant or credible risk to the community. I urge Council in the strongest possible terms to accept and support the recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Buffier. Are there any questions of Mr. Buffier? If not, Councillor McLaughlin, a question? You're muted at the moment, sorry.
Not for Mr. Buffier, but thank you very much for your presentation. It's through you, Mr. Mayor, to the General Manager.
Yes.
I'm assuming that Council will be making a robust submission on this issue before the 22nd.
General Manager, I would imagine if that's what Council decides, it will be very robust, yes.
Yes, through Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. Having said that, I'd like to now move the motion as Mayor, and I'd like to add in to item 2 that Council strongly supports the word strongly. And I think it's always best in these motions not to use acronyms, so if we could spell out the acronyms within the system. Councillor Sanderson, as Deputy Mayor, has now seconded the motion. Yes, Councillor McLaughlin. You're muted.
I'm sorry. I know that you have just moved an amendment, and I'm just wondering if we could perhaps add to that, consistent with our previous resolutions.
Yes, I'm happy to accept that as the seconder of the motion. Yes, that now becomes...
Happy to accept.
Okay, we have a motion before us. I'd like to say a few words before I open it to the floor. As we've heard this evening, this has been a long and difficult process for our community over 40 years. It's spanned many governments of many persuasions and has been something that's eluded the democratic process to be resolved in an equitable and fair way for our community. Tonight we have before us an opportunity to finalise that process, to make sure that our community gets what it deserves, and that's a total remediation of this process. And that is consistent with what Council has pursued for many years now. It's consistent with what many experts have said. It is certainly the desire of all the residents I've spoken to in that location and heard submissions from. I think it's important that this be expedited as quickly as possible and be conveyed to the department or through the process to demonstrate the highest level of support that Council can offer. And that's why I've chosen to move the motion. It is important also that as the process happens, if approved by the government, then we acknowledge the importance of our community in that location to be able to be part of the process and also benefit both in a wellbeing sense as well as materially from the remediation of that site. There's no explanation I've heard that doesn't warrant what is now being proposed, and I do congratulate the department on coming forward with a solution that now reflects what the community in Hunters Hill has desired for so many years, and hopefully now will get the outcome they deserve. So I thank the speakers, and I also now open it up for any further discussion. Are there any speakers against the motion? Any further speakers for the motion? Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I spent a bit of time reading right through the preferred project report, and it is indeed a thorough document, and it's come about through the persistence of people like Ms. Clark and Mr. Buffier and many other residents, and the long-term determination of this council to see the right thing happen for the people of Hunters Hill. I don't want to say too much too early. It hasn't happened. Like Ms. Clark, I'll be happiest when I've seen the last shovelful of material removed from that site. But again, it's a testament to this community to articulate what should occur, articulate what's right, and to achieve outcomes like this. So I am very pleased to support this recommendation. Thank you, Mr.
Any speakers against the motion? Further speakers for the motion? If there are no speakers further, then I'd just like to summarise by looking forward to a positive outcome for this. And as I've said, and as the speakers tonight have said, it's an important issue that is long overdue, and it's great that there is the opportunity now with the government's approval to move forward quickly. I understand it is shovel ready and ready to go, and if it is approved by the government, then that should happen in 2021. So I think this is an important occasion for our residents in Nelson Parade, and Council has now provided its support consistently over the process. So I'd put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare it unanimous. Thank you, councillors, and thank you, speakers, and congratulations, I hope, to the residents of Nelson Parade if the government chooses to accept the proposal. We now move to the next item, item 4.2, and we have a speaker or a couple of speakers in relation to this. So thank you, speakers, and congratulations, I hope, to the residents of we need, for those that are going to speak, to mute or cut, not mute, but what is it, Mel? To reduce to their feed, cut their feed, YouTube feed. So otherwise we get feedback through the system. Okay, we have two speakers this evening on this matter. It is to deal with item 4.2, Gaza Avenue, Hunters Hill Roadworks. Now, who of the two speakers wishes to go first? Gloria or Jeff?
Gloria.
You want me to go first?
Yes, okay, Gloria.
Thank you.
You have 3 minutes.
Firstly, thank you for giving me the opportunity to address council. Can you hear me?
It was very garbled. I don't know whether there's a better connection we can get. I just heard your last word to be okay, so please try again.
So, Jeff, you go ahead.
Okay, Jeff.
Yeah, no problem. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, councillors, for your time this evening and for taking the time to hear our concerns, and particularly for those councillors who have made the time over the last few weeks to come and visit our concerns in person. From our perspective, we understand the report that's been submitted, but we draw some conflicting views with that report from the consensus of the street, and we're particularly concerned about the lack of governance that such a major project has had within Hunters Hill. We're concerned about why the scope of works was deemed to be necessary when all of the street has been looking for since really the early 1980s is the new curb and guttering and a new surface, and not the roll top that was provided. we want to understand why the design was not approved by council, despite the fact that an extra $100,000 was granted to this project in the process. Why there was no consultation with residents along the way. Why there was no willingness by council officers who came out and visited us before and during the process to take on board the feedback or make changes to the designs before they were completed. In fact, we were repeatedly told, let's wait until it's finished and then we'll talk about it. And unfortunately, when we get to the end of it, it's too expensive. It appears by the report that's been submitted, it's too expensive an exercise to then roll back. And then just as importantly, why would such consideration be given to extending such an unpopular and expensive scheme to other streets in the neighbourhood like High Street? So it appears all the way through there's been a lack of governance and oversight in this project. I'd also like to draw concerns to the CAD/CAM design submitted as part of the proposal on page 30. If you take a look at the first diagram on the left-hand side, you can actually see the vehicle and the design is actually parked on the curb. So there's been a bit of poetic license taken in terms of the submission that's been provided to the councillors for your attention. So clearly the space that's available for parking and passing on that street is not as wide as what's been made out by that, because clearly the curb is not designed to be parked on. What that means is that the car that's parked on the left-hand side on the roll top, and one of our major concerns in this process is vehicular access. So you're literally getting out of that car, not with 150 millimetres spare, but literally on top of that edge. So for many residents in the area, they've already experienced dangerous and slipping incidents as they've been entering or exiting the car, because you're literally exiting and entering on that roll top. The other thing I'd like to highlight is that the passing distance for the two cars also appears to be inaccurate, because it's taken it to the top of the roll top. Clearly, the street itself is at the bottom of the roll top, not to the top of the roll top. So I'd just like to highlight a few concerns we have with the diagrams and the CAD/CAMs that have been presented.
Excuse me, Mr. Hallett, we just need Councillor McLaughlin and Councillor Miles put the motion. All those in favour, that's extended your time. So sorry about that, it's just a procedural matter.
Okay, appreciate the support. So despite multiple attempts before, during and after the process to seek engagement from council, we were told things needed to be finished and pushed through. And on this basis, we feel like it's unfair to blame the residents for the cost of the project as being one of the key arguments about why remediation of this project should not be continued. We feel it's unsafe for pedestrians and drivers, as we've highlighted in some of our written submissions. We believe that access to properties has been diminished by this. And once again, I draw light to the CAD/CAM diagrams. It's fine to have that on paper, but come and try and do it in person, particularly on a Friday morning when you've got 3 garbage bins right behind you, waiting for those to be collected. It's almost impossible. And to my governance and design concerns, why was such an expensive and overly engineered piece of work approved without due oversight and diligence along the way? So we ask that the scope of works for High Street not be been allocated to this project, be redirected to the remediation of our streets, so that it removes those safety barriers and continues to be a safe neighbourhood for children and residents alike. So thank you for your time. Appreciate your considerations in this matter.
Are there any questions of Mr. Howlett? Yes, Councillor Miles.
All right, Mr. Howlett, and thank you for addressing council. Just noting, and just in my conversations today, it was suggested to me that in the recommendation that council investigate opportunities to plant street trees. Is that something that you would be supportive of? I've spoken to some residents about possible treatments of the existing issues. Is that something you would be supportive of, or do you think that might be detrimental?
I think it'd be detrimental. I think it's already limited parking in the street. It's one-sided parking anyway. So we've got 2 sides of residents who are who are trying to park on one side. We also have significant overflow of parking from Montefiore home, particularly during weekdays. There's a lot of staff who are parking down there because the high street end is for a portion of it is timed parking. So we do get a lot of staff from that home parking the street as well. So it can be pretty congested at the best of times. So I don't think that would be a practical solution.
Yes, Councillor Miles.
Sorry, and just again to that, obviously your preference would be to reallocate monies to redo the road, but were there treatments available to, do you see any treatment of the existing situation there as something that could be looked at, or is it unworkable in your view?
I think it's unworkable. I know that the final scope has not been approved by council in terms of the final works. There's still some rectification matters coming on, but I think if you take a look at it, the roll top is already starting to break up, and we're literally weeks into construction. So, you know, I think to look at it in isolation as a one-time cost, I think you're going to having a lot of maintenance costs over this project over its useful life, because it's already breaking up in a number of areas along that roll top. So the road itself is in pretty good shape, but the roll top was literally laid by hand. If you think back a few weeks, it was 44 degrees on a Saturday. It was literally laid by the barrow load on the worst possible day to lay asphalt. So I just don't think it's going to last, and it's already starting to break up. So I think you're going to have ongoing maintenance costs associated with this that haven't been considered in the report that's been tabled.
Mm-hmm.
Any further questions of Mr. Howard? If not, thank you very much for your presentation and answers to those questions. We now move to Mrs. Clory. Gloria, you need to unmute, or some will be unmute. We need to, yes, thank you.
So sorry about that. Firstly, thank you so much for the opportunity to address council. My concern, the matters I would like to cover today is the reality of living with the roadworks. Whilst the CAD drawings and standards were used to justify the works that's been carried out by council, it doesn't address how the residents use the street and how the works have impacted on our daily life. It's created a lot of anxiety in terms of entering and exiting our driveways because of line of sight, visibility issues. Once upon a time, I can exit my driveway by looking through the windows of parked vehicles. Now I'm halfway in the street before I can see oncoming traffic. I do stress about the dozen or so children that constantly play in our street. Though if you watch them, they get involved in their games and their play that they might put safety secondary, and the height of parked vehicles is higher than these kids, and oncoming vehicles may not be able to see them before they step out in front of the road. We understand, we appreciate that council has admitted that errors were made prior to the works commencing, but we now feel like we're living an experiment, and we are having to suffer the consequences of the errors and the lessons learned, and I don't think it's just or fair. Like Jeff said, the cost of rectifying the works now would save council huge expenditure in the many years to come. The quality of work, the quality of finish is not there. The safety issues in terms of the roll top, slipping on the roll top curbs, tripping over the gutters, the shallow drains, stormwater drains that have been put in place. They're all issues that will have to be addressed constantly in the years to come, and addressing these issues before commencing additional works is probably a priority for council and will serve them well in the long term.
Thank you. Is that?
We feel the whole streetscape has now resembles more of like a industrial car park rather than a beautiful street in Hunters Hill that, you know, was conducive to community engagement and feel. My biggest concerns are harm to people, harm to human life, and property damage to property. They're the three areas of concern I see arising from the completed works. Thank you for your time.
Are there any questions? If not, thank you for your presentations this evening. Councillor Sanderson, you wish to move the motion?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'd like to put an alternative motion, which I emailed through to the General Manager himself after 4 o'clock this evening. I think it should be available to be put up on the screen. If not, would you like me to read it?
Yes, please. I think it's useful.
Okay, the alternative motion I would like to put is point 1 would remain the same. 1, that Council, that the report be received and noted. 2, that a further report be brought back to the ordinary meeting of Council in February 2021 with a proposal including costings for work on the western side of Gaza Avenue, including removal of the recently installed roll-top curb, its replacement with a curb that will at least restore the original width of the road, and adaptation of stormwater system and driveways to suit. 3, the source of funding be identified, such as deferral of other scheduled roadworks to perform remediation work in Gaza Avenue. 4, that Council consult with the residents of Gaza Avenue about the proposal, including suitable pit gradings, tree plantings and other landscaping. 5, the Council recognises that raised parking bays like those installed in Gaza Avenue are not suitable for Hunters Hill because of a risk of injury and access issues involved with stepping on the roll-top curb when accessing or alighting from elevated vehicles, and the reduced sight lines and streetscape impacts of elevated parking vehicles or elevated parked vehicles. 6, that Council policy be amended to ensure that raised parking bays like those installed in Gaza Avenue are not installed anywhere in the municipality. And 7, that Council's consultation policy be amended to ensure that meaningful diagrams of proposed works are provided to affected parties.
Do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor McLaughlin? Can we now have, sorry?
I really can't second it because I haven't had a chance to digest it. I'm just wondering if we could suspend standing orders so that councillors might have councillors who haven't seen it might have a chance to just look at it more closely.
Yes, well,
it's quite a long amendment.
Yes.
And while I don't immediately disagree with anything, I don't know the detail.
Okay, well, we'll have a pause. If somebody would like to move that we take a moment to read the motion. Yep, Councillor McLaughlin, Councillor Sanderson, put it all those carried that we now suspend standing orders until we have a chance to read the motion that's before us.
Can I ask that we get that the General Manager will be able to email that to us so that we could actually read it on our screens, because I'm going to have trouble reading that on the screen.
Through Mr. Mayor, I can do that.
Okay, it's on its way. Is there a way? I notice on the screen here it's large, but on my screen in front of me it's small. Is there some way of what's being transmitted being enlarged? You have that on. I assume that's what all the councillors are seeing.
It's tiny on my screen as well.
Yes.
Can I make a suggestion if we've got suspended standing orders?
I need to read the document, yes. No, it's fine to be live. We're not debating it, we're just reading it and familiarising ourselves with it. We'll get to debate when we have a seconder.
Okay.
Has everybody had a chance now to read the motion, proposed motion? No, okay, a few more minutes. For those that are watching at home, we're taking a moment to make sure that every councillor has the opportunity to read and understand the motion put by Councillor Sanderson before we debate it. Councillor McLaughlin, I notice you're still reading. If you had a chance now to familiarise yourself.
Yes, but clearly there's a lot to be digested. So.
Okay, if you want some more time, I'm happy to.
No, that's fine. If everyone else is ready to go.
Yes, Councillor Miles and Councillor Collins. Can't see Councillor Collins, he's disappeared. Okay, well, I assume that he has. So a motion to move back into Councillor Crassoy, Councillor Sanderson, put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried. We're now back in formal council. We have a mover of the motion, Councillor Sanderson. Is there a seconder? Councillor Crassoy.
Mr. Mayor, I'm just wondering if I could second the motion if Councillor Sanderson would consider removing the last points about changing council policies and perhaps bring them back in a separate motion another time.
Councillor Sanderson, you wishing to consider that?
Look, I would consider that. I would prefer, though, that if it would satisfy Councillor Crassoy, we could separate it into two motions and deal with them individually.
So you're now moving 1 to 5, is that correct?
Which is, well, my confusion is which parts Councillor Crassoy would like removed.
6 and 7, as I understand. Is that correct, Councillor Crassoy? Yes. Not removed, but considered at a later stage.
Look, again, I'd be happy for it to be separated into two motions. So we
okay.
do 1 to 5 and 1 to 7.
Your motion before council is 1 to 5.
Yep.
And is there a seconder? Councillor Crassoy. Do you wish to speak to your motion, Councillor Sanderson?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I share many of the concerns that have been raised by our speakers tonight. Before I start, though, I will say I mean no criticism of our acting director. Having recently finished my 43-year career as a design project engineer, I've been called on many times to rectify other people's mistakes. It is a difficult task. I do, however, have a lot of problems with this report. First of all, the figures given in terms of amounts allocated are inconsistent. If we go back to look at that motion in August, in fact, it was 191,000 was the additional amount added, not 141, and that's how you come up with a figure of 314,000. We were also advised in a separate briefing that the amount was actually something of the order of 470,000 that's been spent. So I do have a bit of a problem with the report when one of its conclusions is that it is considered that the cost is unjustified and would be a substantial waste of public resources. Unfortunately, that substantial waste has already occurred, as our speakers point out. I also have a number of problems with this, the report, in as much as in terms of the height of the that the vehicles were raised. The report tries to suggest it's only 85 millimetres. Having visited the site, I can assure you it's far more than that. And if it was measured correctly off the height of the original gutter, rather than the road surface, I'm sure you would see that it'd be more than 150 millimetres. So that the impacts on the street are safety, and I mean, on the safety side, with that roll gutter, I mean, yes, they are used elsewhere, but when they're used in typically in a lot of the newer developments in Sydney's northwest, that the intention is for those roll gutters to allow vehicles to park with a couple of wheels on the drive. It is not for or on the verge. It's not for people to effectively park on top of the gutter and step off onto the gutter, which obviously provides potential for injuries like twisting ankles and so on. And we do have, and as the statistics we keep on looking at keep on telling us, we have an ageing population, and it's going to get a lot older before that situation starts to change. So I think access is an incredibly important thing to consider. That needs to be part of, access and the lines of sight, and also the streetscape of that street. Look, I think I will leave my argument at this stage and see what other debate brings up, and add further if necessary when I get a right of reply. Thank you, Mr. Beck.
Okay, are there any further speakers, or there speakers against? I'm looking up at the big screen. Councillor Miles.
I don't necessarily have a problem with any other point except for 5. I thought that it might be worth foreshadowing a deferral, though, just because I think that these issues that are raised can be raised prior to the February meeting anyway. So I think if we defer it till February, we can nut out some of these issues without having obviously being able to consider what is quite a lot of alternative motion here. There's a lot of points in there that I'd like to at least mull over. I think it's probably best that we defer the motion to the first ordinary meeting in 2021 in order to address these points. But I have the same reservations as Councillor Crassoy at points 6 and 7, and I would even put point 5 into that category as well. I don't think I can support point 5.
Any speakers for the motion? Councillor Crassoy.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'll speak for it, and a little as to why I wouldn't like to see the entire kit caboodle be deferred until February. If we pass this motion now, I think things will get rolling, and the residents will know that council have made this decision, and sort of rest easy knowing that things are underway, and we'll have more to talk about in February, rather than just the whole thing being deferred until then. I'm loath to squander any of our money. We are a small council, we have a tight budget, and we all know that. But I appreciate that there was a lot of feedback given by the General Manager that there was an acknowledgement about some communication breakdown, etc. And it's good to have an apology for that, but what that communication breakdown cost us in having that road work continue is substantial. And I think Ms. Curry's comment there that really resonated with me was to be the subject of a failed experiment and just have to live with that oops is kind of not fair. And so I would really like to see all of Councillor Sanderson's points, which I agree. You do this, Councillor Sanderson. Why can't you send us these things a little earlier? It's really well put together, and if we'd had more time to read it, perhaps. But if we can agree with the intention of this, I think we need to keep moving forward with this, mostly for the residents, particularly, again, Ms. Curry's comments about their emotional well-being. I had one of the residents call me on the day that the concrete started being laid, and they believed that council were coming to consult with them. They had thought that the work had stopped and that they were going to be able to express their concerns and hopefully find a better outcome before all of this expenditure got literally set in stone and tar. And so I really felt that desperation and frustration by these people who have always lived on this quiet little street, and all they've wanted for many years is the same standard of tar that the rest of the suburb has. And anyway, it's a little emotional for them, I know. And so I think before Christmas and after such an upheaval year, I think we do need to work towards, if Councillor Miles wants to massage this a bit, I could consider supporting that, but we need a resolution tonight. So the residents have some sense of where it's going, including greater consultation in anything that happens going forward, and a stop on the repair works of the poorly done job so far, because it would just be a waste of money.
Thank you, Councillor Cresswell. Is there a speaker against the motion? Councillor Collins.
Not against. And apologies, I just had to do the family issue. But just on the 6, I just wonder whether...
just for your benefit, because you weren't able to be present, 6 and 7 have been deleted for the purpose.
Oh, good. Okay. I just wonder about 5 as well, just because it's a bit broad. I agree with 1 to 4, but 5 is just, I don't have any information on that. It's just a bit broad. Can we deal with that at another time? It may be a good idea, but I just don't think we have any background to it, that's all. So let's just, if we just focus on this particular issue at hand, I think 1 to 4 does that. And then 5, let's look at that as a separate overall issue, because maybe sometimes it is appropriate, maybe it's not, I don't know. I don't have any information. So that's my suggestion.
Comment? Yeah, okay. So we have a motion before us that is items 1 to 5. Are there any further speakers in relation
Can I suggest removing 5 as an amendment to that, or?
If it's an amendment, yes.
Okay, can I do that then? And then
is there a seconder to the amendment? Councillor McLaughlin, is there do you wish to speak to your amendment?
No, I think that's okay.
Does the mover of the motion wish to incorporate that?
Not at this stage, Mr. Mayor. Let's put it to the meeting to see whether they want it amended or not.
Yes. Okay. Has there been a speak? Have you spoken to your motion, Councillor Collins?
Perhaps in that case, I should foreshadow 1 to 4. No.
No. There's an amendment on the table which you've moved. Now, do you wish to speak to that further?
Did I amend it?
You moved an amendment to delete 5.
Okay, good. All right. I'll no, that's fine. Everybody knows what it is, okay. So that's fine.
Any Councillor McLaughlin?
Can I speak in support of the amendment to remove number 5 through to, and we've already removed 6 and 7, as I understand it.
That's correct, yes. So that would mean that the motion would be, if amended, would be 1 to 4.
Right. I support, well, in relation to speaking for the amendment, I do think that 5 through to 7 are standalone issues that can be dealt with in a further motion to council if Councillor Sanderson would like to bring that. I think we should stick to the substantive elements of this motion, which is to solve the issue for Gaza. And I think including number 5 at this point is really just it's a broad statement of what we would like to see throughout the whole municipality, but I'd like to restrict this motion as much as possible to the Gaza issue for those residents so that we don't complicate things further.
Okay. Is there a speaker for or against? Councillor Crasso speaking for the amendment?
for the amendment, and with my apologies, it was hard to see on the screen and I was squinting, but when I asked for the items about policy to be considered as a separate motion, that item 5 was one of them. So my apologies to Councillor Sanderson. It was very hard to see up on the screen. I've just pulled it up on my phone and it's easy to see. So I would support that amendment that Councillor Collins has added as well.
Any further speakers? Councillor Sanderson.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just briefly, I think it's highly important that we we instigate a policy change as well to ensure that this doesn't happen. I would like to get some policy change on the table tonight. I don't think it's going to complicate the matter for the people of Gaza Avenue. So I'd like 5 to remain. I'll accept if those who have put the amendment think otherwise, but I think at the present time it should remain.
Right of reply, Councillor Collins. No.
So I don't think it's necessary. I just think it needs. I might just we need to stick to the issue at hand, and I think we need to bring that one separately and look at it as a Hunters Hill wide policy rather than tack it onto this. Anyway.
Okay, well now we've completed debate on the amendment. I'll put the amendment. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried. That now becomes the motion. We now have the motion being items 1 to 4. We now move back into debating that motion. Anybody who wishes to speak further on the matter? Yes, Councillor McLaughlin.
Yes, I will support Councillor Sanderson's motion. It is very technical in its detail, and I'm assuming that there are points in there that will allow, there's a point talking about consultation with the residents, which will allow the residents to bring in some of their own issues and concerns as well. So I do support this motion as it stands now. I think it's very important that it be considered by this council tonight and not deferred, because as Councillor Crasoy very correctly pointed out, this is an issue that is going to be very emotional for the residents as they move through Christmas and through January. And having some certainty that council is looking to address this issue as soon as possible at its earliest in the February meeting, I think is very, very important for these residents. They've gone through quite a lot in the last few weeks, and I think we need to provide some resolution for them.
Thank you. I'd like to echo those thoughts because I think it is important that council make a decision on this issue tonight, and what will flow from that is further discussion with residents and also come back to council in February to consider the matter with all the detail available. So is there any further debate? Right of reply, Councillor Sanderson. You need to unmute. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I don't think I need to say a lot in reply. I think we've got support on this. It is unfortunate that it happened, but in the long run, I think the long-term solution is that we bring about some of the policy change. And I mean, we are, as an elected body of council, supposed to be about determining policy, and it's important that the policy change to improve consultation and it improved to spell out what is acceptable in the municipality of Hunters Hill. And I mean, clearly we can't have other groups in Hunters Hill going through what the people in Gaza Avenue have unnecessarily been put through. I commend the motion.
That completes debate. I now put the motion, which represents items 1 to 4 and Councillor Sanderson's motion. I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare carried unanimously. Councillor Sanderson, you foreshadowed you wish to deal with the remainder as a separate item.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I did foreshadow that, but I looking at the numbers, I don't think I'll have the numbers to do that tonight. Perhaps it would be better, as others have advocated, that I leave that till and bring that as a separate motion, perhaps on our first meeting in February.
Yes.
And that will give me the opportunity to present more reasons as I would normally do with a notice of motion.
Yes, thank you. Councillor McLaughlin.
Can I also suggest that perhaps it be we've given some advice from council officers on that as well at the time of that motion being brought?
Yes, we can do that. I think that's sensible. Okay, that now completes item 4.2, and thank you to the speakers and council. We've also agreed to bring forward item 4.10, which is the minutes of the local traffic meeting held on the 3rd of December. There's some declarations of interest associated with that. And if we just take a moment to move to that point in the agenda. Now, there's several speakers, and does council wish to simplify the process by hearing the speakers in relation to each of the items as we go forward? That would mean that we bring forward a couple of the items to be dealt with so the residents can be heard. Yep, okay. So I think, who do we have online at the moment in relation? We currently... Sharon Moore.
And I presume Neil.
Is Neil there?
Also present at this time.
Is he with you, Mrs.
Yes.
Moore?
Yes.
Yep, okay. We can't hear you because you're muted. So thank you. So now before we'll deal with item 3.13 in the minutes, which relates to Waroota Place, Huntley's Cove, and the traffic parking issues. Over to you, Mrs. Moore, to put your concerns or issues.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councillors and the General Manager for the opportunity to speak at this meeting to address the ongoing parking and traffic issues in Waroota Place, Huntley's Cove. I'm a resident of Waroota Place and Huntley's Cove, and behind me are a number of other residents who support my address to council. Over the years that I've lived here, I've seen a growing number of vehicles of all shapes and sizes, lengths and weights, including trucks, full-size buses, 8-metre long trailers towing as many as 9 rowing hulls, emergency vehicles, council waste trucks, and trailer towing 4-wheel drives, as well as the average family car, all of whom often travel at speeds in excess of the 50 kilometres per hour that is signposted up on Victoria Road and Mortimer Lewis Drive for this local traffic zone. The escalating problems in this no-through road have existed for over 2 decades. Repeated appeals to council have been made for years by residents to address the speed and parking of vehicles of non-residents and non-locals to this small suburban, what was a cul-de-sac. These traffic and parking problems have been identified through many conversations and emails to council and Roads New South Wales, yet no action has been taken to genuinely resolve or investigate these issues. We sincerely believe that these issues will only become worse if they continue to be ignored, and the fact that Waroota Place was not designed for the volume and intensity of road use that is being expected to cope with, and accept action is needed as soon as possible and definitely before the new draft management plan for Riverglade Reserve. Added to this speed issue, we also have drivers who park anywhere along Waroota Place that they can find a space, legal or not, and thereby reduce the width of the street, causing congestion and near accidents on a regular basis. I note from the minutes of the last traffic meeting that those present were shown the photographs and video that I sent of a recent Saturday morning in Waroota Place, where drivers were illegally mounting the footpaths to access both ends due to parked cars blocking the free flow. The ensuing traffic jam is a regular occurrence here in Waroota Place. Sadly, weekends are not the only time when high volumes of traffic drive through Waroota Place. This is a daily occurrence and a resolution to the current parking problems, as well as the lowering of the current speed of 50 kilometres per hour through Waroota Place is necessary. It is only a matter of time before someone gets hurt or worse with the ever increasing number of people coming into Waroota Place. So, in conclusion, to prevent motor vehicle accidents, injuries or worse to pedestrians, cyclists and animals, damage to property and the destruction of the green wildlife corridor surrounding numbers 29 to 33, I strongly appeal to all of you to please, 1, enforce a lower speed limit for Waroota Place to no greater than 30 kilometres per hour. 40 kilometres per hour is still too high. 2, install appropriate, adequate and well thought out traffic calming at both ends of Waroota Place and reduce parking in Waroota Place via time limited or resident only parking, not putting in one side of the road parking as this still great.
Mrs. Moore, we just need to proceed. Councillor Miles, Councillor McLaughlin, seconded. All those in favour? Declare it carried. That just allows you to extend beyond 3 minutes.
I've only got 1 minute. I'm just
No, that's all right. Thank you.
Of the road, yeah, as residents still have trouble, will still have trouble exiting through their driveways. 3, clearly signpost speed in Waroota Place, as well as the shared zones that are needed for cyclists, pedestrians and vehicles east of the Huntley's Cove estate within the existing 10 kilometre per hour zone leading into the rowing shed area. And lastly, and very importantly, conserve and maintain the small green corridor beyond the Huntley's Cove estate section of Waroota Place by not constructing an unnecessary car park when there is so much existing parking in the surrounding area at Huntley's Point Road and Jolly Parade Hunters Hill, where users of the park and wanting to come near Waroota Place can walk in. My neighbour, Neil Worsley, will provide more facts on the stream of users to Waroota Place, and I thank you so much for your attention to my statement and for helping us to resolve this issue ASAP. Thank you.
Are there any, before Mr. Worsley speaks, is there any questions of Mrs. Moore? Councillor Miles, you need to unmute.
Thank you for addressing council, and obviously that's given us a bit of insight into some of the issues down there. I just note that in the minutes of the meeting, I think Councillor Collins asked why there was no report or no recommendations coming out of the report. Obviously, it would be really useful for us to get a list of those concerns, maybe sent through to council officers or to councillors, because I think that those are all very legitimate raised. So it'd be great if you could just send this to us.
I've done that.
Okay,
Councillor Miles, I've done that. You've got it.
Perfect. Thank
Are
you.
there any further questions of Mrs. Moore? Councillor McLaughlin.
Yes, and thank you, Mrs. Moore, for your presentation. Just to clarify, did you say there's a restriction on the size of trucks that can come into Waroota Place? Did I hear that?
No, I didn't say there's a reduction. I said that they're coming in here and they're bigger than the council waste trucks that come in here.
Right. Okay,
as a fire engine would be and other emergency vehicles that have to come in from time to time.
Councillor Collins.
Just a question. So you sent through the video.
Yes.
Yeah. When did you send that through?
About 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Oh, okay. So a couple. Yeah.
I understand that there was a problem with the time that Leanne had to produce a report that was normally be served at one of those traffic meetings. I don't know why that was. She sent me an email, asked me a whole lot of questions, which I responded to, but didn't do that until the day of the traffic meeting.
I might have, okay, I'll address that when I speak. So thank you for sending that through, Rob.
No worries.
Councillor Crassel, you had a question.
Thank you. And thank you. I assume then from the proceedings of the traffic committee, which I just watched as an observer, so I did get to see that video as well. I assume the comments here then that council need to work with RMS and achieve an integrated outcome, and that they've thrown around a few ideas, but the most important one in there is that they would need to consult more with the residents. I assume that's what you're looking for, so you're kind of happy at the moment with where the traffic committee are going with this recommendation. They want to consult with the residents and they want to work with RMS, and I would suggest that they need to work with the Sailing Club as well, stakeholders. But are you happy with it so far?
As you know from the Zoom meeting about the management plan, there hasn't been any consultation with us here in Huntley's Cove, in Waroota Place particularly, about the parking and the traffic and the speeding. And we're not happy with anything the way it is at the moment. We just feel like we're in limbo. And I made a phone call to Roads New South Wales at the suggestion of Council's traffic officer, who wrote back to me and said, well, look, this isn't really for us to do, this is for Council to do. And then we had a really long chat, Mitchell and I, for about an hour and a half. And then he came down and he totally agreed that there's issues with the width of the road. There's issues with the fact that the road at either end is on an incline. So you either speed in and speed out to get over the hump at the end, or you come from the hump and you come down and go up. What we really need is a professionally formulated traffic survey. Neil will speak more about this than I feel that I should. We do need to be consulted, and we do need to get people down here. Ross was great. He came down, saw what we were talking about, has had a look around. I'm sure many of you know where this street is, and I'm sure many of you have been down and parked down and found how difficult it is to park down here. We don't understand why people aren't parking where there's nobody else parking. Like, it's a bit weird to us. But you've got Huntley's Point Road where there's nobody parking and you could just walk in there. I don't understand why people are driving in to exercise. I don't know why they don't walk in. And over on Jolly Parade at Hunters Hill. Everything sort of seems to focus in on here. And then we've just got this huge mess that happens, congestion after congestion. And when we've got buses that come down a road that's not wide enough for two cars to pass, two regular cars to pass, and people back up all the way back up to Mortimer Lewis Drive, and then you've got to go one for one. And then if somebody's parked on the road, then they've got to mount the footpaths and go around. And, you know, we've got little kids in this street. We've got elderly people. We've got visitors to the street who are walking their dogs. So we've got animals, some of them off leash. They're not supposed to be. But it's just...
Thank you.
Catastrophe.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no further questions for Mrs. Moore, we'll move on to Neil. Neil, do you wish to say something?
Yes, look, thank you very much again for all of you taking our concerns. I'd like to add a little bit more detail about the issues relating to parking and traffic in Waroota Place. I'm also a resident of Waroota Place, which is really a local residential road. And I've been here for around about 4.5 years, and I've seen increasing traffic over that period of time, and particularly in relation to people looking for parking. I refer to the recent minutes from the Traffic Safety Committee dated the 3rd of December, and that states that Waroota Place leads to 2 access roads. And it refers to the access in relation to for local residents, which I'm one of those, and to an informal car park. I think that's wrongly described. I'd like to note that it's actually a green space and it should be a wildlife corridor. That's been left to degrade by inaction by council on actually looking after that area. It's part of the area which was, when I came here, it was green grass. It's now pretty well eroded, and the silt just blows around in the area whenever there's wind. Secondly, that same document also refers to insufficient parking at the rowing club. I'd like to know how many members are at the rowing club, because I don't think council actually knows that. I don't think there's been any attempt to find out how many spaces are there at their informal car park. and where they actually do park, and where the rowers, whether the rowers are parking near the rowing club or elsewhere in Waroota Place. I'd also like to know which days that they're there, how long are they there, what other people are actually parking in the area. I think these are all things that council needs to know so that they can make better decisions about what's actually going on in the parking and traffic in this particular street. They're important questions to answer, and without having some sort of analysis, it's hard to do that. I sent over 280 photographs with Ross back to council of parking over the last couple of years. Just to give you some figures, on Friday this week, at 6:58, there were 32 cars parked around the rowing club. On Saturday, there were 23 cars around the rowing club and another 12 cars in the bushland area and on the parking areas around at the rowing club at 7:16. Now, all of those cars have driven in. If they're there for the whole day, that's 116 cars before 9 o'clock have driven along Waroota Place in order to get into that particular area. All of those have to come out again. And so that gives you double that.
Neil, if you could just pause for a moment.
Sure.
Councillor Miles, Councillor McLaughlin put the motion. All those in favour declare it carried. Sorry, procedural.
Thank you. Thank you for the extension.
Yep.
So does anyone from council actually know how many cars are coming in there? I don't think that there is any way in which they do. If I estimate based on those three figures taken this week, that would be 266 cars per week travelling just to go and access the rowing club. Then there are other cars going in for the football through the winter, etc. There are around about 80 cars on a Saturday come in for football into that area. As you can see, this is a ridiculous number of cars coming along Waroota Place in order to access primarily parking. Hopefully you can see that by then, assuming that we then formalise a car park in the area, it's going to add to compound this even more, because at this stage, there's no official car parking in this area, and yet we're getting all of these cars coming in. The issue is really going to be further complicated by the management plan. We need to consider how people walk into into Riverglade Reserve, how they access that, where they're coming from. And once we've got better information, then we can make better long-term solutions to what's going on. I would suggest that a 4.4 metre road wide, which is how wide the pavement is on Waroota Place, it then goes to 3.3 metres wide once you get up past the end of the residential area. It only has 1.5 metre wide nature strip on each side. It's too narrow for that volume of traffic and that intensity of use. You have to come up with a better solution. And yes, in the meantime, we need to calm traffic down, slow it down, and restrict some of the parking. But at some point, we need a long-term sustainable solution to this and the way in which we're going to use Riverglade Reserve into the future. So really, those are my issues. And I think there needs to be some more in-depth analysis of what's going on, because we're making decisions to fix very short-term problems, but it's a bigger problem than what's being addressed at this point.
Councillor, you have your hand up. Councillor Prasoy, you've got your hand up in the screen. Do you wish to speak? No? No, okay, sorry. Just that there's a hand up in the corner there. Not to worry. Councillor McLaughlin, you have a question.
I think that's from the last meeting.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I do, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Neil. That's very useful. Just to clarify, both you and Mrs. Moore wouldn't or don't support the parking being restricted to one side of the road to ensure through travel, which is one of the recommendations in the in the report.
Sorry? Oh, yeah, Neil, you need to unmute. Sorry. Neil, unmute, please. You need to unmute. Yeah, thank you.
Right. Yeah, it's not that simplistic, unfortunately. You would need to come and have a look at the issue because there are driveways, there are street trees, there are sections where it narrows, there's also a hill. So those things need to be considered as well. But generally, yeah, there needs to be something done. And that's why we need to analyse it properly rather than just say, oh, that's the fix and it's done. It won't work like that. Speed humps in the wrong location will be another problem. So again, we need to consider what's the best solution. And I'd have to say reducing the number of cars coming down here is something that needs to be long-term considered.
Great, thank you. That answers that question.
Councillor Collins, you have a question?
No, sorry. I thought I'll just speak to it once, but I thought that was done. Are we going to speak to it individually or?
No, I wish to move a recommendation.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yep. So we've got something to debate and talk about.
Okay.
The council meets with the residents at Huntley's Cove to identify traffic issues and identify solutions to the problems and report to council at its meeting in February 2021. Is there a seconder to that? Councillor Miles. I'll speak to that. I've seen the video at the traffic meeting. I've been down to the site and met with a number of residents, and there are clearly issues that need to be addressed in one way or another. I think we need to, first of all, separate issues out from the plan of management process, which still has opportunity for residents to put submissions in up until the 22nd, I think, Madam Gentleman, yeah, 22nd of this month. So that's one process. But I think it's important that council and council staff meet with the residents to get clarity of the issues that they face. It was very evident to me with a visit there as to some of those issues, but I think we need to consult with the residents to clarify those concerns and seek their views on solutions. And then staff can provide back to council what are workable solutions to those problems and provide some data and information. One of the uncertain issues is as to the ownership of those carriageways, and I think that needs to be clarified as well in the process. So my view is that we need to work closely with the residents to make sure that we capture all the issues and identify with them what are the solutions. And I think it would be appropriate to have a report back to council with staff's views in February as to what are the possible solutions and a pathway to move forward with implementing solutions if agreed to by council. So that's the logic for what I'm proposing there. Are there any further speakers against the motion? Any further speakers for the motion? Councillor Collins.
Yeah, I might just briefly say I think it's a good idea. When this came before the traffic committee, I wasn't sure why there was no recommendation but obviously there wasn't enough time to do it. RMS or Traffic New South Wales, I understand, are undertaking some traffic studies there, and and it was my understanding that I think early next year that they were going to bring it back to the traffic committee. But if council can liaise with with RMS and find out what they're doing and just make sure that everyone's on the same page, I think this definitely needs a whole precinct-wide review. So
it would be helpful to get confirmation that that was happening between RMS was actually actioning that.
I'm pretty sure he said that. I thought that what was said, that he was going to do it early next year. But I will double check. But either way, I think council needs to do their part as well. So let's just have everyone on the same page. Clearly, it's not working, but you know, the recommend at the meeting it was decided not to just do little piecemeal. You know, we need to look at the whole precinct and figure out what's going on there, because that, I mean, I've never seen anything like that. I mean, that car driving on the footpath, that's just, I mean,
You should
we
have a
were
look
all in
at,
shock.
See it all the time.
have a look at some of the other photos that I sent as well.
Once we're in debate, yeah, that's fine. We don't engage further in discussion with the speakers.
Yeah, anyway, I support it, so let's, yeah. Go ahead.
The General Manager wished to make a comment.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. If I could just ask the Director, for the benefit of the councillors who weren't at the Traffic Committee, to provide a bit more context and the process that was discussed at the Traffic Committee and the process from here. Thank you, Neil. Just need to unmute.
Unmute, please.
Yeah, you got me now?
We do, yes.
Through you, Mr Mayor, just to clarify that the video that I saw was brought to my attention after the agenda had been sent out, and in fact, I think it was only a day or two before the meeting of the Traffic Committee, and when I saw it, I was quite alarmed, and I wanted to include it in the agenda just in the general business section because, and that's why there was no recommendation. It was just purely to get it on the agenda. I thought it was important to do that so that we can start having some dialogue and work out a way forward for the street, because clearly there's some issues there that need to be resolved. So I'd suggest that the council, as you've recommended, Mr Mayor, might refer this back to staff to consult and investigate, including liaison with the RMS, Transport for New South Wales, regarding the speeding issue.
Thank you. Is there any further debate? Councillor Crassoli.
Mr Mayor, I just wanted to clarify, because you've put a recommendation, but just about the rest of the report from that meeting as well, that it be received or adopted. I don't.
No, this is specifically dealing with that item.
You just want to deal with that item separately, is that?
Yes, we're not changing the minutes, but it's arising out of the minutes that we need to, if council chooses, needs to make a specific acknowledgement and direction to move forward.
Thank you. All I would like to suggest, Mr Mayor, if you would consider it, is that you actually add stakeholders to, I can't actually see what you've written because of the way my screen's working tonight, but
I'm not quite sure whether I've just spoke that as we captured that council meet with residents at Huntley's Cove to identify traffic issues and to identify solutions to these problems and report to council at its meeting February 2021. I believe this is going to be a process that will require iteration and ongoing dialogue with the residents, because my experience on site was that for every traffic solution, there was a concern raised by others. So it needs to be worked through by council. And if council comes to a conclusion, then the Traffic Committee can consider the matter from a technical point of view.
Thank you, Mr.
That's the intent.
Yeah, so I mean, just generally that though, when we would make a recommendation like that, I would have thought that you would include stakeholders, and as you have done in the proceedings of the meeting where you suggested that council work with RMS.
Yes, I'm quite happy to include the word stakeholders.
And Transport for New South Wales, is that like, because the RMS Transport for New South Wales, they...
Well, I don't think Transport for New South Wales has a role, because it's there's no bus routes in that location. That's their role on the Traffic Committee. So I think it's an issue that council needs to clarify with its residents and formulate options for resolving them, get agreement on those, and then seek input from the Traffic Committee. I agree that the Roads New South Wales have offered to be part of the process, so we need to include them as stakeholders as to what they wish to contribute. is the intent of what I'm putting forward.
I know it's the intent, but it's not kind of in it. So I just wondered if you could tighten up.
Yes, but we've now put in stakeholders, Huntley's Cove and stakeholders to identify issues and identify solutions.
Transport for New South Wales do actually have a place team now, and so they would be the appropriate ones to be seeking to engage with. Thank you.
Fair enough. But whoever's got a role, and as I say, we need to establish whose responsibility it is, and so council can work with them. If it's council's responsibility, then we need to involve relevant authorities in finding solutions that the residents are expecting of us. I use the term Huntley's Cove because at the meeting that I attended, there was more issues than just at Waroota Place. And I think we need to look at the issue that affects Waroota Place, but also look at in a holistic way that whole complex of streets, which are very similar and under similar pressures. So that's why I've brought that out. Okay, is there any further debate in relation to the matter? And I do stress this is an additional motion to what the Traffic Committee report is about. Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Declare it carried unanimously. We now move back to other matters associated with the traffic minutes. And we have another speaker. Now we have some requests to read out some information. Mr. Stein Davies, is that right? In relation to which items?
So Mr. Rory Stein Davies has asked regarding item 3.14, support statutory signage only to this location. Extended signage should be removed as per New South Wales guidelines. These guidelines apply to school zone signage too. There are Australian standard and guidelines for these signs attached, highlighted RMS correspondence regarding the extended signage and school zone signage, advance warning, statutory to the area which have not been met. Below, I provide an email from Steve Carapis, Group Manager, Development and Regulatory Control, in conjunction with the attached RMS letter. For the past 2+ years, I've been lobbying for the following items be removed: the no stopping sign for the residents parking be reinstated, 2, relocation of the school zone signs to St Paul's Street so Joeys can walk to their school sporting field. These are advanced warning signs and have been installed too closely to the intersection under the New South Wales guidelines. Also 3, install no left turn to the north end of St Mary's Street to reduce queuing in high pedestrian area, see below. Remove buses and heavy vehicles from north end of Mary Street, high pedestrian area, access one direction via entry to Ryde Road only, leave towards Victoria Road only. Again, this is a major cause of congestion at the intersection. 5, remove conditional vehicles from north end of Mary Street, reducing hazards and risk, and include vehicles such as loud electric buggies, tractors, ride-on mowers, slashes, etc. Again, high pedestrian area. 6, designated pick-up and drop-off area located well away from the dangerous intersection, perhaps even attached to the actual school boundary. I hope to see the above recommendations implemented and enforced. Rory, concerned resident.
That deals with 3.44. Do you wish to do the others as well?
Yep. So item 3.3, should this have arisen from the attached letter, I hope that the other previous correspondence is considered, such as addressed to 3.4 as per below. I believe council's observations to be poppycock, There are Australian standards and guidelines for these signs and road swept path for bus turning circles, which have a minimum standard to achieve. Remove bus and heavy vehicles from the north end of Mary Street, a high pedestrian area. Access one direction via enter from Ryde Road only, leave via South Mary Street towards Victoria Road only. Again, this is a major cause of congestion at the intersection and dangerous to all road users. I support these items so buses can turn south to access to Victoria Road only. For the past 2+ years, I've been lobbying for the following items. 1, remove the no stopping signs for residents parking to be reinstated. 2, relocate the school zone signs to Paul Street so Joeys can walk to their sporting fields. These are advanced warning signs that have been installed.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
I think we've gone past the 3 minutes, and I just might note that I've read the emails, and I wonder if
that we allow residents to provide written as well as verbal. If we've exceeded, have we exceeded the 3?
We have exceeded 3 minutes.
Yes. Okay, the motion to extend, Councillor Sanderson. Is there a seconder? Councillor McLaughlin, put the motion. All those in favour, declare it carried. Could we please proceed? Yep.
Remove the conditional vehicles from north end of Mary Street, reducing hazards and risks to include vehicles such as loud electric road loose tractors, ride-on mowers, slushes, etc. Again, high pedestrian area. Number 6, designated pick-up and drop-off area located well away from this dangerous intersection, perhaps even attached to the actual boundary. Suggestion of safety from the police should be implemented as per image. I hope the above recommendation implemented and enforced. He also speaks to 3.1.
Yes, well, let's hear the issue.
I object to the extension of the bus zone to the north side of Mark Street. Thank you for hearing me. I am here because I have communicated my concerns about the safety of the current traffic management in Hunters Hill to various stakeholders, including the RMS, STA, police, traffic supervisor, and do not believe that they have performed a detailed assessment prior to concluding that there is no issue with the bus usage on Mary Street and there is no alternative route to school. I think we all know buses have direct access to Villa Maria and St Joseph's School via Mark Street from Ryde Road. Scots College had its large coach there just this Saturday for afternoon rugby match. Most importantly, we should think about the safety, particularly in the case of road users, being both drivers, pedestrians, and of course our school children. Secondly, we should think about the damage to our council assets, as Mary Street is clearly defined by RMS signage as a light traffic road with load restrictions. These light traffic roads and streetscapes of our beautiful local community require protection. I have a degree in construction management and RMS license for traffic control, implementing traffic control plans, prepare a work zone management plan. Buses should not use Mary Street because they are 15 tonnes, 5 times the signposted amount for light traffic areas. They reduce visibility for road users on Mary Street, both drivers and pedestrians, especially on the busy intersections such as Mark and Mary Street. They cannot fit on light traffic roads, meaning they cannot get on the same road going in the opposite directions. So they should only travel in one direction via Mark Street, as they should have done for so long. Buses cannot turn the corner into the school due to the pitch points of the curb outside 9 and 54 Mary Street. See photos. They are block the newly erected school share zone signs, which have now consumed 3 parking spaces. And therefore accuse, believe has been erected in the wrong location, as it takes no consideration of the 1,000+ boys walking to their ovals in Augustine. All these points just increase damage and danger to our community and infrastructure. My qualifications make me look at safety of our roads in a holistic manner, especially that of Mark and Mary Street intersections that is right on my doorstep. I have had dialogue with Gladesville Police since 2013 with regards to the dangers of the road users at the intersection. That's 3 minutes again.
Yep, that's okay. Is there much more?
The rest of that.
I think we've probably got the information that we need. Is council happy with that? Yes. Okay, so we now need to deal with the issue of 4.10, which is the report of the traffic committee. Now, we need to deal with the minutes in terms of those items that we accept and those items that we may wish to change. Now, we've dealt with item 13, which identifies a different view that council has in relation to that matter. In terms of the rest of the minutes, I think it's probably appropriate considering the information we've just had, and that we deal with them as we go through. I'd also like to raise that in the minutes, it mentions Councillor Crassoy as being in attendance. She was only an observer. I think that needs to be clearly marked on in the minutes. Councillor Collins, you had your hand up.
Yes, I'd just like to move the recommendations as is.
With the addition of acknowledging that we've dealt with 13. Yep. Is there a seconder to that? Councillor Miles, do you wish to speak to your motion, Councillor Collins?
No, not at this stage.
Are there any, is there any speakers against the motion? Councillor Sanderson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I thought we were going to deal with each of the matters individually. I mean, I think there are quite a number of matters that we need to look at on an individual basis, and I think we need to continue that way. The minutes can be accepted, but I don't think the recommendations can.
Is that an amendment you wish to move?
Look, I would move that an amendment at this stage, which is to accept the minutes. I would also note that the minutes are somewhat left wanting in as much as for a local traffic committee, they should be identifying whether the matters were carried unanimously or not, because that has a downstream effect should be any appeal flow from those decisions. So I think that's a point that could be made in the minutes. I think the motion should be we accept the minutes, noting that they should indicate whether each of the individual items are have been resolved unanimously or not.
Yes, okay. Is there a seconder to that amendment? Sorry? I'll second it for the purpose of debate. So you wish to speak further to your amendment, Councillor Sanderson?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I think you know the flow charts that RMS, as it was then, put out in relation to the conduct of the local traffic committees, which are a statutory body. There is a flow chart provided which gives how action should flow from that committee. That flow chart will take different routes depending on whether the matter has been determined unanimously or in by a majority from that committee. So it's important that the minutes indicate that. So I think it's important that if we're going to accept the minutes, we should put that notation on so that in future the minutes deal with the or deal with that matter, so that they abide by the by the RMS guideline. And as to the individual matters, I think council needs to make individual decisions about the recommendations in the report.
Is there any speakers against?
Can I have a question before I speak against? Is there a specific item that you wish not to be in there? Or, I mean, there's quite a few here. Do we go one by one, or?
I think we need to go one by one.
Well, how many of them are you? I don't know how we would do that, Mr. Mayor. There's quite a number of matters. Are we to suspend standing orders or something? This is a little bit unprecedented. Is there a particular issue you wish to withdraw from this current recommendation?
Councillor Sanderson, I don't think it's unprecedented. I think we need to be confident about the decisions that are being made here from a council's point of view. It's one thing for a committee to make a recommendation. It's not for council whether it wishes to implement that. Councillor Sanderson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think you made the point I was going to make, but I think it's entirely appropriate that we look at each recommendation on its merits.
Well, let's start with Mark Street. That's Mr.
Now,
Mayor, how we do
Councillor
this.
Collins, are you speaking against the amendment?
Well, the amendment, the amendment is to throw out all these recommendations that have been through Traffic Committee. I don't understand what the recommendation, what he's suggesting. To accept the minutes and then not take any of the recommendations? Or do we?
No, Councillor Collins, what is being asked for is that council adopt the minutes with exceptions where council wishes to consider the matter in a different way. It's not obliged to accept all the recommendations that are within here. If it doesn't accept them, then it needs to go through a process.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Miles.
Clarification on the exact wording of the amendment, because I like
yes.
Councillor Collins, am struggling.
A very good point, Councillor Sanderson. Could you clarify the wording that you've intended in this amendment?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I will attempt to do so without being diverted on this occasion. That council accept the minutes of a local traffic committee meeting. That council notes that comply with RMS guidelines. The minutes should indicate whether each motion was carried unanimously or by majority.
Mm-hmm.
And that individual recommendations of the committee be considered by council on their merits.
In this meeting?
In this meeting. Thank you, Councillor Miles.
One by one, okay.
Yep.
That doesn't mean that there would be changes on every issue.
Absolutely not.
Right. So have we captured that amendment? Almost. Okay. We'll just take a moment for it to be documented.
Just a point of clarification.
Yes, Councillor McLaughlin.
So basically what you're asking us to do through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Sanderson, you're just asking us to vote yay or nay for each individual item, but not debating it, just saying whether or not we vote yay or nay for each individual item.
I think the majority of them would just say yes to it, but I mean, there are one or two there that may require a little bit of debate.
Right, okay, thank you.
Have we captured that that amendment? Looking at the General Manager, is you comfortable you've got that now?
Well, Mr. Mayor, with Councillor Sanderson, you haven't got that typed, have you?
No, I just dictated that. I'm sorry, wasn't well that prepared for that one.
Councillor Miles, you have a question or you wish to speak?
No, I just have a question to you, I guess, Mr. Mayor. That this will have no bearing or effect on the motion that we passed earlier regarding Huntley Road, will it?
No.
No, that's a separate motion.
That's already been passed. So we're just talking about the minutes of this meeting here. We're not passing anything to do with what was discussed tonight, apart from potentially the issue addressed by Rory.
That's right. The way it is working at the moment is these minutes say to receive and note. Council has chosen to explore the issue further with residents and find a solution. So that recommendation stands separately. It's not contrary to anything that's in the minutes here. Right, so we have the amendment on the screen. Does that clarify what you intend, Councillor Sanderson?
I think it will do, Mr. Mayor. It's not precisely the words, but I think that covers what I was trying to get across.
Good. Right, so we now have a yes, Councillor McLaughlin. Can't hear you. Thank you.
That's because I have to go off mute and then go, I can't see myself to go off mute, and then I have to go back to the recommendation. Now I can't find the recommendation.
Well, that's the difficulty I have as chair of the meeting. When we have something on the screen, I can only see one or two councillors, so please excuse me if I don't.
Sorry, I just need to have the recommendation back on the screen.
Okay. The amendment to the
amendment, sorry.
We might move the faces a little bit.
Yeah, I think it needs by majority, and in point 2, and that individual recommendations of the committee be considered. That any individual recommendations. I think that's what you're trying to achieve, Councillor Sanderson. That any individual recommendations.
Yeah.
Are you happy with those amendments?
I'm very happy to accept Councillor McLaughlin's grammar check.
Okay.
Yeah, or by majority. So point 2 should be or by majority, and I'm not sure
that's right.
Compliant with RMS guidelines is.
No, that wasn't quite what I said, but the council notes that.
In accordance with, I would suggest in accordance with.
So instead of compliant, it should be in accordance with.
If that's something that Councillor Sanderson agrees with.
Yeah, the council notes that that minutes put minutes between that and in. Or 2B, the council notes that minutes to be in accordance. That minutes to be in accordance. So minutes to be in
accordance with guidelines and remove the
in accordance with RMS guidelines should indicate whether each motion was carried unanimously or by majority.
Yep. Okay. Right. So we have an amendment on the table. I've seconded it. Do you wish to speak to it further, Councillor Sanderson?
No, I think we've had enough debate on that already.
Yep. Okay. Any further debate? Councillor Collins, you wish to speak for or against?
Well, against. I don't understand how this is going to work. How are we going to deal with each of these issues? Are we going to do this after?
No.
New motions. We're going to have 7 or 8 new motions after this because there are issues on here that need to be dealt with.
Potentially, yes. There will be outcomes if issues need to be addressed rather than just accepted. So the process, I think, is the process is to go through each of the recommendations.
As separate motions?
Yes, as separate responses by council.
As business arrives. Okay, so we will have the opportunity after this motion passes to speak to each one individually.
It's an amendment to the motion, yes.
Okay.
I now put right a reply, Councillor Sanderson.
Not necessary, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Crasoy. You need to unmute. Yeah. Could somebody
Sorry, I was just sort of waiting to see where that was going. And this is actually just a question. Can someone clarify for me? Because we note these minutes and have done for the last, well, 3 and a bit years of my time on council. And normally if someone has something in the minutes they want to raise, it just kind of gets raised and discussed. But I actually did notice with these minutes that there are already reports to follow based on some of the recommendations in the minutes, which I thought was actually very well done. And so I'm not quite sure what's different this time to, we normally get minutes, and normally if someone's got a thing they'd like to discuss, they say, thanks for those minutes, can I ask a question about something or other? I don't understand why we're changing the way we do everything, if the recommendation has come from that meeting, which I was lucky enough to observe, but if a recommendation has come from that meeting to council, then isn't it up to the council officer to present a report for us to discuss, which is what, if I'm reading tonight's paper properly, and I've got screens open everywhere, but I'm just not quite sure why we're going through this.
My view is that we're not doing anything unusual in relation to this. Council receives minutes from its committees, which it has the right to ask for further information in relation to parts in those, or to resolve to make a decision in relation to those. So all that we're doing now is working, if this amendment is adopted, we will be accepting the minutes, but not all the recommendations, and we will then make a decision as council as to which of those recommendations we either wish to get further information on. There are reports attached to this set of minutes, or have an approach that's different to what is within the minutes. These are not just, as with advisory committees, these are decisions that if council accepts will be implemented. So we have an amendment on the table. I think we've now concluded any debate on that. I now put the amendment. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried. So we now move through each of those recommendations to see if there are issues. Yes, Councillor Collins?
I'd like to move the first issue.
Yes.
3.1.
Is there a seconder to that? Councillor Miles? Any debate?
Nope.
Put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried.
Move 3.2.
Yes. Is there a seconder? Councillor Miles? Any debate? The motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried.
Move 3.3.
Is Councillor Miles the second? And is there any debate or discussion in relation to that matter? No. Put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried.
Move 4.4.
Is there a second?
Sorry, 3.4.
Yep. Is there any discussion in relation to 3.4? I noticed that the motion lapsed, so the committee had no decision in relation to that. Council doesn't have a view. Councillor Crasoy?
Mr. Mayor, I did see that discussion, and I felt that it needed more exploration and consideration. I think there were some interesting points raised about it, and I know it's very easy because you're near a school to just say, oh, we're near a school, so therefore no stopping is probably safer. But I wondered whether it would be suitable for council to explore that a fraction more, because some of the points raised about, Mr. Stanley Davies for the last couple of years, for example, was that no stopping zone effectively created a second lane of traffic, which it can no longer do because there's a blister there, but therefore it doesn't create the flow that it was set there to create in the first place, to keep the cars moving around the corner. And so I don't understand why it needs to be excessively longer than in any normal line of sight in any normal school area near a crossing. Why the extra padding? And I'd probably like to make a note that council consider that more before they just do that.
Yes, Councillor Sanderson.
Look, I fully agree with Councillor Crasso on that. So this would be one element, and this is the reason I moved as I did, to separate the items out. This would be one that I'd be voting against.
Yes, okay. I was obviously at that meeting, and I concur with Councillor Crasoy that further exploration is required with this matter because of the change in configuration, lack of safety implications, redundancy of signs, and equally importantly, the statement by the RMS to remove the hazard signs to further down the street. So any inference that the no stopping signs are protecting or influencing the hazard signs is going to become redundant. Yes, Councillor Cresswell.
Mr. Mayor, could I move an amendment that council receive a report on this?
Yes. Is there a seconder? Councillor McLaughlin. The General Manager wants to make a point.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I think the Director would like to make a comment on that matter. Thank you. Yeah.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. I understand the RMS is one of the concerns they raised was just the vision of drivers to the school zone flashing light sign. Now, the thing with that is that RMS is looking to move that further back up the street towards, I guess it would be towards the north, towards Paul Street. And I think they've identified a suitable location at the moment.
Thank you for that information. We have an amendment. Councillor Crasoy, did you move that? Yes, you did. Councillor Sanderson seconded it. We seek further, Councillor McLaughlin, we seek further report in relation to that matter, considering those changes that have occurred. Is
happy
there
to incorporate?
Okay, that's now incorporated. The seconder, happy? Yes, that's now part now of the motion. Any further debate? Put the motion. All those in favour, against, declare it carried.
Move 3.5.
Again, there was no recommendation flowing.
Move 3.6.
No. Well, before we move on, is there a view of council in relation to that? If not,
isn't this coming in a further report? Like, isn't this an item elsewhere? Yeah. So I don't know that we need to do anything with this.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Okay, we'll move on to 3.6. We'll just note that Baron's present. Yes.
Moved.
Councillor Sanderson, put the motion. All those in favour, against, declare it carried.
Move 3.7.
Yes. Is there a seconder? Councillor Miles, put the motion. If there's no debate, all those in favour, against, declare it carried.
Move 3.8.
Seconder. Councillor Sanderson, any further debate? Put the motion. All those in favour, against, declare it carried. Oh, sorry, Councillor Cresswell. Yes, Councillor Cresswell.
And sorry, I'm losing track because of the way these minutes are coming up on the screens tonight. And I'm pretty sure there is a further report on this, and if there is, then just a question: is there is another report further on the paper on this item, isn't there?
Is there General Manager?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Director.
Are there further reports in relation to some of these matters?
Good question, Mr. Mayor. I think all you've got in front of you is what's going to be presented tonight in terms of the Traffic Committee.
If I might, just to make clarification. I think, Elizabeth, what you're looking at are the deeper reports within the traffic committee.
That's the agenda which the traffic committee considered.
I think,
so we're not
I think
dealing
you're
with
looking at the agenda items.
Okay.
I'm not aware of any further reports except what the traffic committee considered.
Thank you. In which case, Mr. Mayor, I would like to suggest that on this item, further consultation be done before this be implemented. Only 3 residents were consulted and 2 of them were happy with the status quo practically, and yet a decision was made to change things around a bit because 1 resident wanted it changed. So there's a school there and there's a T intersection and there are other, I just don't know why you'd kind of do that. Yep.
So which
3.8, Councillor
Lyndhurst present.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so Councillor Creslow is seeking a further report.
Happy to incorporate.
Yes, Councillor Collins has agreed to that. And then comes the motion. All those in favour? Against, declare it carried.
Move 3.9.
Second.
Yep. No discussion. Put the motion. All those in favour? Against, declare it carried.
Move 3.10.
I think this one needs further consultation. I'd move an amendment.
Sorry, I've already moved 3.10.
Yes, but I just said I'd like to move an amendment, which I'm entitled to.
I don't have a seconder yet, so you can't amend it.
Oh, okay. Is there a seconder? Councillor Miles, there you go. So I'm moving an amendment. Is Councillor Creslow seconding that? I noticed, yes. I believe that the shopkeepers need to be consulted in this matter, as it has implications for them prior to council making a decision. So I support that we have consultation on this matter. Councillor Creslow, you wish to speak?
Mr. Mayor, if you would consider adding consultation with existing working groups in the area and school safety committees as well.
Yes, I think that's important.
Thank you.
So that's been
no, sorry. So don't I get a chance to speak to it once I've moved the motion before you amend it?
If you wish to speak.
Got to amend the heading first.
Yeah, I think that's only fair. Look, this has actually come out of the School Safety Committee. The reason why this has come about is because there's dangerous behaviour at the front of Baronia Park Public School, where and the school have asked for safety reasons because of double parking and parents pulling up in the bus stop and letting kids out quickly. Dangerous behaviour. That is why this has been requested. Now, there is nothing to suggest that improving the turnover of spaces there is bad for business, but even if it is, we need to appreciate that the most important thing we do when it comes to an issue around parking in front of a school, whilst sure we need to consult the business community, but it is about children's safety. You absolutely cannot stop this from happening, and which means that anything you change now won't be in time for the new school year, right? Which means that we all have a whole new cohort coming in of new parents, new risky behaviour, children in danger purely because you want to get another report on the impact to businesses when it is established that it may have zero. It's turning over spaces, so that improves. But even if it does, the overarching principle here is that it has been requested by the school principal, from the P&C, from the school community. It has been endorsed by the Traffic Committee, the Traffic New South Wales, the police have said, agreed that this is risky behaviour and this warrants a safety intervention. And you want to tell me that you want to take this to consultation? That is absolutely ridiculous. It is completely unacceptable. If you do not pass this tonight, that means that next year, when all those kids go to school, we haven't fixed this problem. So that's ridiculous. This needs to pass. This is a safety issue. If you want to discuss and consult with the business community afterwards, you can do that.
Yes, Councillor Sanderson.
Look, I don't think it's appropriate for Councillor Collins to say that the conduct of councillors is ridiculous. I think he should withdraw.
Yes, please withdraw. That's
no, sorry, Mr. Mayor. It is ridiculous. It is ridiculous, and I stand by that comment.
I rule you out of order. Councillor McLaughlin.
It's ridiculous.
I don't. Please, Councillor Collins, you've been ruled out of order. Please cease. Councillor McLaughlin.
I'm really not sure where what the problem is exactly, but just to ask a question of Councillor Collins, you're suggesting that the parents at the school are engaging in dangerous behaviour by double parking because they can't park when they need to. So you're saying the parents are putting their children in a dangerous situation by not being able to park. So they're double parking, which is illegal.
Correct. They're parking in the bus zone. So by freeing up more spots, right, by having more turnover, instead of people parking there for the whole day and then leaving and going into town or whatever they're doing, it means that excuse me, Kathy, it's important. It means that there will be more spaces, which means that kids can get dropped off to school in a safe manner. It also means that businesses such as coffee shops and thereby...
I've just got a further question, and that is,
sure,
why aren't they parking legally elsewhere at the moment? Why are they parking illegally?
Because it's not excusable behaviour, but this is what's happening. We're about providing. That is just being argumentative for the sake of it.
Councillor Collins, I rule you out of order.
I'm just trying to establish what the issue is, because if there are legal spaces available, why are they parking illegally? I think a lot of these things are parent behaviour as well.
Yes, and having more spaces where parents can park and drop off their kids will mean there's more spaces, and so there's less likely to be risky behaviour. And that's why the school have asked, on behalf of the children there, they cannot speak here for themselves.
You've made your point. You've spoken to the motion. Any further? Where are we at, General Manager, in terms of we have a motion, we have an amendment? Is that right?
A motion. Yeah.
Do we have an amendment that we consult? Consult. I just want to clarify that long discussion has left me a little bit uncertain as to where we are in the process.
Well, Mr. Mayor, let me lay it out.
Councillor Collins, please be quiet. I'm seeking clarification from the staff. I move an amendment sent by Councillor Crasoi, shopkeepers be consulted in existing working groups, Yes, so that's the amendment we're dealing with. I wish to speak to the amendment. I was at the meeting, and I think what is being requested here, there was no documentation provided by the school. I think there are solutions to this that can benefit the school as well as the businesses. In many other locations in the municipality, we have time zones, and the hazard signs are time zoned as well, between 8 and 9:30 and between 2:30 and 4. That is when the issue is at hand. I'm not quite sure why we have to impede the businesses in the intervening period. So my view is that we need to consult with those businesses to see whether they do have a use for that zone in between. And if they do, then our decision needs to reflect that. We can still provide what the school wants by having a time zone allowing businesses to make use of those spots between 9:30 and 2:30, I think, whatever those traditional school signs are. So that's why I think we need to consult with the businesses. And as Councillor McLaughlin has pointed out, that people need to adhere to legal parking, particularly around schools. So that's my intent in the amendment, not to dismiss the issue, but to seek further clarity and a further option to ensure that all parties get benefit out of this.
Question, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councillor
The
Collins.
recommendation as it stands says that it would be subject to consultation anyway. So assuming there's no major dramas, then this can actually get done before the start of school term next year. So why can't the recommendation stand as it is?
Because
my
understanding of the staff's comment at the meeting was that consultation was just letting businesses know, not seeking their feedback. So hence I have the concern that we need to consult with the staff.
I think that was a misunderstanding of what I remember from the meeting, Mr.
Well, that may be the case, Councillor Collins, but that's my understanding of it, and I think we need to have meaningful consultation. We've been through this process tonight with Gaza Street. I think Council needs to do its process correctly. Yes, Councillor McLaughlin.
Just a point of clarification, the current recommendation says that the existing half hour, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday to Friday, be extended north. So at the moment it's still all day parking that is restricted. I think the Mayor's intention is that parking just be restricted from 8 a.m. to 9:30 and from 2:30 to 4 p.m. So therefore the recommendation, even though it is subject to community consultation, is blocking out all day parking at the moment.
Correct.
Yes, which the intervening period between the school zones, I believe, is not a safety issue.
What about during
Councillor Collins, Councillor Cresswell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So you've made an amendment. Councillor Collins has spoken against it already. So I'd like to speak for the amendment for a number of reasons, because I did watch that meeting and I did notice that the item was brought as a late item, as these things do. I wasn't aware that it had come out of the School Safety Committee. I haven't seen the minutes where that was the case. So that's...
you were at the meeting.
Where they
Councillor Collins, could you please refrain?
I'm also just wanted to make the point that it's not a drop-off zone. So it's not, people aren't pulling up and kiddies jumping out of the car and scampering onto the curb. That it's actually a cars park and parents need to hop out and get their kids in and out of the car. You can't, your kids can't run in and out of the USH without, it's not a drop-off zone. The drop-off zone's at the back of the school. The other thing is that when listening to it at the meeting, because I was an observer, so I wasn't talking, but the other thing I noted was the Mayor's comments at the meeting about the time in between, like, you know, you could consider that rather than spending money putting up half-hour signs, you know, perhaps we make the whole strip 2 hours with half hours at one end for a certain amount of time. These are the things that come out of conversations and consultation with the interested user groups of the area. But my last point would have to be, fed on from something you said quite some time ago, Councillor Collins, this traffic advisory committee, it's a technical and advisory committee, and you can't just kind of throw an idea up and I agree, it's important that we get children's safety right, but you can't just chuck an idea up and go, this is what needs to be done here and we need to do it and we need to do it before next year. Do it. That's not what that committee is meant to do. We are meant to do the groundwork, consult and come up with a plan that won't have to be ripped up and reversed in 6 months' time when it isn't the best outcome for the area, and won't really change anything for the kids or their parents apart from just, yeah, it needs to be looked at wholly, and that's what should happen before it even goes to that technical committee. And I think that this amendment will enable that to happen correctly. I think it's really important.
Is there any further speakers against the amendment?
Yep.
No, you've already spoken. Councillor Collins. Is there any speakers further for? If not, I've said my piece. I now put the amendment. All those in favour? Declare it carried. That becomes the motion. Any further debate in relation? Yes, Councillor Collins.
I'll speak against it. I don't understand how this can now be rectified, this safety issue that has come from a request from the school principal who, knows it pretty well, better than probably anyone here. And the intention was that if we pass this tonight, then this safety issue that affects children can be fixed in time for the new school year. And now that can't happen. So it's an absolute disgrace, and it is a very poor lack of judgment for those that have decided that they have.
Collins, you're putting value judgment out of order.
It is a poor lack of judgment. It is a
Councillor Collins, you need to show respect to the council.
Well, it is very hard to show respect for the council when they don't look out for the interests of school safety. So
that is your opinion, Councillor Collins.
I think most of the community.
Councillor Collins, point of order. I'm sure every councillor around this table or on this Zoom meeting are very mindful of the importance of safety for our children, and will act appropriately. So you've had your...
No, I haven't had my 3 minutes, Mr. Mayor.
Well, continue on then, but keep focused on the issue.
The issue is that starting next year, the new school term, this safety issue won't be fixed. And that's an absolute disgrace. That's a very poor lack of judgment on those councils who decided to kick this down the road instead of looking out for the school and school safety. It's an absolute disgrace.
No, that is your opinion. I don't.
It is probably shared by the majority of the community, Mr. Mayor.
Well, there you go. I don't believe so.
Motion be put, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, there's been a motion be put. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried. We now have dealt. Item 3.11, which is the New Year's Eve. I think that's procedural. Put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried. We now move to 3.12, which is the school zone extension. Is there a motion in relation to that? Is council happy to adopt the resolution, which is to put zigzag markings be installed both approaches to the crossing? Yes, okay, that's moved by me, seconded by Councillor Collins. Put the motion. All those in favour? Against? We've dealt with Waroota Place, 39 Ride Road driveway site. Well, that was just receive and note, so I'll move that way. Put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried. That completes the traffic report. That now concludes items that are dealing with people that wish to speak. So we now go back to the front of the business paper, and the first item we need to deal with is a report in relation to the local 2.1 Local Government New South Wales Annual Conference. Report by Councillor Sanderson. Do you wish to move to receive and note? Is there a second? Councillor Crassoy. Do you wish to speak to your motion, Councillor Sanderson?
Look, very briefly, if I could, Mr. Mayor. This was first time we've had an online meeting. It had some benefits, I guess, for some of the country constituents in that they weren't impeded in getting there. There was actually a motion that future conferences be accessible online. The conference lost a lot through being online rather than being face-to-face, and the valuable workshops that I know Councillor Crassoy and I made great value of last year, as did you, Mr. Mayor. And one of the, there was good speakers. One of the interesting things was the motions on debate. In particular, was on the planning, there was a motion from Randwick Council that dealt with a lot of issues. The Randwick Council motion was actually slightly in error because they attributed them to amendments to the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act this year, which didn't occur. Most of those amendments actually occurred through a ministerial directive from the Minister, Mr. Stokes, or Dr. Stokes. And I think some of those we need to have a look at in the future to see how they're going to impact on council, because that will include operation of the local planning panel. I mean, I hope that we would never get to the situation in Hunters Hill where it would ever be thought appropriate for our local planning panel not to have public meetings. And unfortunately, one of the ministerial directions would permit that under some circumstances. It also muddies the water in terms of what the threshold is to go before the local planning panel and when those meetings will be to be held in public. So it uses quite different terminology from the original directives by the previous Minister for Planning. There are a lot of issues to be looked at there. Unfortunately, we haven't had the forum this year for that sort of debate. But I think it's important that Local Government New South Wales carries on in its amazing role, and we have that as a, I guess that communication with other councils to inform each other of things that are relevant to all areas of local government. Other issue there too at the meeting was the issue that effectively local government has lost any voice through COAG, because COAG effectively hasn't operated since the measures to deal with COVID and the advent of the National Cabinet. So there was a motion by other councils to have local government represented on the National Cabinet, which I think is also important. And there were plenty of examples given at the conference about just how important the huge resource local government is in terms of the information that they hold and the contribution that they can make to national decision making. So it was a conference well worth attending, even if it was a little bit disappointing in terms of it being online and not having the opportunity for face-to-face interaction. But anyway, I thank Council for the opportunity for representing Council at that forum. It's certainly worthwhile. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Speakers against the motion? Speakers for the motion? I'd like to make some observations of mine as somebody that attended the conference. It's demonstrated to me that online endeavours with large, complex organisations dealing with complex issues is not the desired way to do it. I think only a third of the motions were considered, leaving the rest to be decided on by the executive. I don't think is a good outcome for local government. The debate that normally occurs around those motions, I think, is important in local government learning together and working forward collectively. So I think from that perspective, I was rather disappointed. There was none of the workshopping or the content that I found in previous conferences useful in my own personal development and ability to network and communicate with other councillors dealing with similar issues. I found the government ministers' representatives to be very hollow and lacked any opportunity to advise local government as to what are issues that they see as important and are pursuing on behalf of local government. It was interesting that all but one of the politicians in the forum or the panel agreed that the planning system was broken and needs to be fixed. So to me, the only useful part of the formal conference process, apart from those motions that were able to be discussed and debated, was the panel that dealt with the Resilience New South Wales, I forget what it's called, Resilience New South Wales, the inaugural commissioner spoke very impressively as to what that organisation is about and what it's going to deliver. And also I was impressed with Councillor Scott's, the President of the Local Government New South Wales, summary of the broad range of advocacy which Local Government New South Wales has provided over the last 12 months. And she particularly highlighted the bushfires, COVID response, to name a few. So I found, as with Councillor Sanderson, any opportunity to work collectively and collaboratively with other councils and our peak body, Local Government New South Wales, is beneficial. But I believe there are better ways that we can achieve that, particularly in a more person-to-person process and more opportunities to explore issues in detail. So thank you, Councillor Sanderson, for providing that report. Are there any further, is there any further debate? If not, write a reply, Councillor Sanderson. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Declare it unanimously. We now move to the next item on the business paper, which... Sorry?
Move the motion. 4.3.
Yeah, we've got to get to where it is in the business paper. I've got it marked. Just one moment.
I'll second that.
Which is
4.3.
Yeah, I'm getting there. That's 5. There it is. Which is the program for local roads and community infrastructure grants program. We have a mover, Councillor Miles, second, Councillor Collins. Do you wish to speak to your motion, Councillor Miles?
No, Mr. Mayor, it's pretty self-explanatory.
Are there any speakers against? I'd like to make a comment. I think the federal government, and particularly our local member, should be commended on this additional funding provided to local government and the way in which it's now available to councils to use on shovel-ready projects would otherwise not be done in an infrastructure way. And it certainly will help in getting employment opportunities early in the piece during our recovery from the pandemic. So I do thank the local member, federal member, Mr. Trent Zidman, for considering us for this program. Is there any further debate, Councillor McLaughlin?
I just note that we are deferring the Alexandra Street channelization proposal and replacing it with the tree planting proposal, which is fine because the Alexandra Street isn't shovel ready. But I don't want to see that forgotten. So I'm just asking, I guess, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the General Manager, that we are still going to look at that wider issue with the Alexandra Street and Mount Street.
Yes, the General Manager will respond to that.
Problems.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the intention is to come back and have a further briefing with the councillors, and then we'll have broad consultation and then bring a further report back to the councillors before we progress with anything on Alexandra Street or Mount Street.
Thank you very much for that clarification.
It probably won't be considered under our budgeting process for next year in our works program. So we do have time to go through that process. We have a mover, seconder, any further debate? Right of reply, Councillor Miles, I think you moved it. No. Put the motion, all those in favour, against, declare it carried. We now move on. Sorry, Councillor Sanderson.
No, I've moved 4.4, Mr. Mayor.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Collins, do you wish to speak to your motion?
Yes, I will, Mr. Mayor. This is obviously something that we've had access to for a while. I think it's important that we do endorse this housing strategy and put it out to public exhibition without delay. I think that obviously, along with the Greater Sydney Commission draft district plans and our own local strategic plans, this essentially is starting to hone down into the various villages that we're looking to target for any increased housing in Hunters Hill, and I particularly point to changes in Gladesville, obviously, that may be being made as a part of the master plan that we'll be conducting up there, and less so, but also importantly, the Hunters Hill Village, Baronia Park Village, and areas like Woolwich. And I think it's good to get this out in public consultation and get people's views on it, but it's an important document, sort of roadmap to the future.
Any, Councillor Sanderson?
Mr Mayor, I don't want to speak against the motion at this point in time. I had intended to move an alternate motion. What I'll do is foreshadow it, if I could. The alternate motion I would like to put is the endorsement of the draft local housing strategy for public exhibition and DPI health check be deferred until after it has been reviewed by a council meeting in committee of the whole at a time to be arranged.
Okay, that's a foreshadowed motion if this motion is not carried. Councillor Miles?
Just a question on that, Mr Mayor. At a time to be arranged, why at a time to be arranged? What's the purpose of that? Do you have a specific timeline that you're working to, or are we just leaving it open-ended?
My concern, if I could answer the question, Mr Mayor,
yes, you may,
is that contrary to what you said earlier, Councillor Miles, we weren't given a great deal of time to work with this. Effectively, council has had 1 week from the time of first citing this document. I responded in full. I gave 5 pages of what I thought should change in that document. The only thing that my 5 pages changed was to have an apostrophe inserted on the first page. I don't believe what I have put forward has been considered. I therefore think that probably what we should do is meet in a meeting in committee of the whole as soon as possible, and then an extraordinary meeting after that to put it out. So it shouldn't disrupt the course of events.
Okay, so that's the answer to your question, Councillor Miles. You've spoken to your motion. Are there any speakers against the motion? Councillor Sanderson.
Yes, Mr Mayor, as I think I started to indicate, I don't believe I've had adequate input into this. And it's not just simply a case like the CIP putting it out for community consultation. And that didn't go all that well anyway. What I think is important is that, this is a document that has been developed by and large by staff. Certainly there are constraints on it in terms of what we can do, because effectively we've got to comply with state government templates. But at the same time, it's incredibly important that we get what is important to Hunters Hill prioritised in that document. And there were certain things I suggested that might have been accepted. Now, I haven't received any reason as to why they cannot. Now, in parallel with the public consultation, we also have a DPI checklist or health check. Now, if we start to negotiate that health check at this point in time, what I can see is going to inevitably happen is that we'll go through the health check as it stands. Then if I try to have some of the things that I would like to see in that document inserted at a later time, I'll be told, oh no, it doesn't comply with the health check. Now, we should, as a council, be taking every opportunity we can. We should have done a better job with the LSPS. We should be doing it with this document. I think as a council, some of us have different priorities. Clearly, Mr Mayor, your priority and my priority is heritage, bushland, garden suburb, and all those sort of things. Others have development in mind. I don't think we should be advertising that we can develop. We are very limited in what we can do. We need to be telling the story and giving the reasons for this municipality, and we need to be doing so strongly. I want to be confident about the document at this point in time. I think it would be very lazy just to tick off on a document that we've had a week to comment on. I've taken the trouble to make about 5 pages of comments, and as I said, that managed to get an apostrophe inserted. If that document doesn't reflect my position, I don't think it reflects the position of other members of this council. It certainly wouldn't reflect the views of much of this community. I think it's important we get it right before it goes out this time, particularly in view of there being the health check occurring with this in parallel. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any speakers for the motion? Speakers against? I'd like to make a comment. I share those concerns of Councillor Sanderson. I took the trouble to put what I believe to be reasonable and important comments in relation to the document, which I spent a lot of time doing in a very short period of time. And I can't see in the current document those issues being addressed. I would like to be confident when it goes to the community that it does reflect what I understand to be the community values. This document, I believe, will be one of the pillars for which we use, along with a range of other policies and strategies, to review our LEP and our DCP, which are fundamental to the being of Hunters Hill in terms of the lifestyle, the livability, and what we value in our community. So I'm not satisfied at this point in time that councillor issues have been addressed. Councillor Collins, do you wish to speak for or against?
I would like to speak for. First of all, I want to ask a question. Do we get funding for this, and do we have to get this? So we're putting it on exhibition we're still going to put it on exhibition, is that right? Is that your amendment? So I can't see it in front of me. Is it still going on? Sorry.
No, there's no amendment. We're now speaking for and against the motion.
Oh, okay, right.
Councillor Miles.
I might just highlight. I've got a document of where Councillor Sanderson's suggestions have been incorporated and addressed, and there are reasons why they haven't been put in. But I think ultimately we just need to get this to the community and then put it on exhibition for everyone to have a say. So I speak in favour of just putting this out there rather than foreshadowed motion to hold things up. So yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
I think it needs to be clarified that we have a motion before us by Councillor Miles, and we also have a foreshadowed motion by Councillor Sanderson.
Yes.
The original motion is lost. So, any further debate in relation to the motion of Councillor Miles? Right of reply, Councillor Miles.
Only to say, Mr. Mayor, I'm sure the councillors all do have different priorities. I'm seeing the document with the feedback from Councillor Sanderson, which he had adequate time, obviously, to write 5 pages and review the document. You yourself have said that you reviewed the document and gave feedback. I reviewed the document and I gave my feedback. The General Manager wrote back to me with a very detailed set of reasons why some of my suggestions shouldn't be included and why some may have merit. So the suggestion that we haven't had the time to digest it when we've all read it and we've all, most of us, provided feedback on it, doesn't really stack up. This is a really important document. To say that the LSPS was a lacking document, I think does disservice to the staff that put it together. All of these documents are crucial in planning the way that housing is created into the future. We're part of a growing city. We all on this council appreciate bushland and heritage. I don't think there's one of us on council that doesn't. But to not plan for the future of where housing is being placed in Hunters Hill and not addressing the diversity of housing that will need to be looked at as part of this plan, I think is folly. So I don't know why we wouldn't put this out to public consultation. As I said, it is a good document. It has received councillor feedback. We have all received reasons as to why or why not certain portions of our feedback may not have been included. And I got good reasons as to why some of my concerns that I raised weren't included. Happy to put it out to consultation and let residents have their say.
That closes debate. I now put the motion, and be mindful of a foreshadowed motion from Councillor Sanderson if this is lost. I now put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried. And just as a footnote, I would appreciate from the General Manager a response to my "I've received nothing." We now move to the next item, which is 4.5, which is fees and charges for the yard. Is there a motion in relation to the matter? Councillor Miles, is there a seconder to the motion? Councillor Crasoy, is there any discussion? Do you wish to speak to your motion, Councillor Miles?
Necessary, Mr. Mayor.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Declare it carried unanimously. We now move to 4.6, licence agreement for the Priory, Lot 1. Councillor Miles, is there a seconder? Councillor McLaughlin. Do you wish to speak to your motion, Councillor Miles?
Only to say this, and it's kind of appropriate that Councillor McLaughlin seconded this, because we both dealt with this very early on when we were Greenhorn councillors. It's wonderful to see that it's gotten to this point. We've all been frustrated at times with the progress of what was happening with the Priory, but this is an excellent outcome. And obviously we are giving the applicants the ability to move forward with their proposal. And it's going to be a wonderful facility for the community, and it's going to restore that very important heritage item.
Speakers against? For? Right of reply? Put the motion. All those in favour? Declare it carried unanimously. We now move on to item 4.7, draft remote pilot aircraft policy. Modern technology. Is there a mover of the recommendation? Councillor Crasoy, a seconder. Councillor McLaughlin, do you wish to speak to your motion, Councillor Crasoy? No. Any further debate? Right of reply, put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare carried unanimously. We now move to item 4.8, which is a report from the General Manager in relation to Equal Employment Opportunity Policy and Equal Employment Opportunity Management Plan. There's a document attached. Councillor Crasoy, do you wish to move the recommendation? Councillor Miles has seconded the recommendation. Is there any, do you wish to speak to your motion, Councillor Crasoy? No. Any further discussion in relation to the motion? If not, write a reply. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Declare it carried unanimously. We now move on to 4.10, which is, no, we've dealt with that. 4.9, okay, skipped over. Which, no, 4.8. Oh, yes, okay. Summary of Council's investments as at the 30th of November 2020. Is there a mover of the recommendation? Councillor McLaughlin, a seconder. Councillor Sanderson. Is there any discussion? Yes, Councillor Collins, before you speak, I'll ask the mover of the motion if they wish to speak to their motion. No? Okay, Councillor Collins, are you speaking for or against or asking a question?
Well, also I've got a couple of questions before we go into amendments. But what's the credit rating of AMP? Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes. General Manager.
General Manager, can you assist, please?
Through Mr. Mayor to the Director.
The credit rating of AMP, they're a B-rated entity.
Okay, so we've got in the policy, the investment policy we adopted a couple of months ago, which is still standing, is that we've got a maximum of exposure of B-rated investments of 30%, and we've got over 50% of our investments in B-rated investments. Yeah. On top of that, the policy states that for B-rated investments, the maximum amount per institution should not exceed 5 million, and all B-rated investments should be less than 12 months. And we've got two investments here that are have a horizon of 12 months or more, $1 million worth. So basically, from my understanding is if we've got on one day we've lodged on the 16th of November, we've lodged $6 million.
My apologies, Councillor Collins. We just had a technical glitch with a lead falling out, which has now activated another audio source. So are we right now? Yes, we're right now. Sorry, apologies for that. Councillor Collins.
So I guess that's a question before I speak to it. So am I missing something here?
General Manager, could you please help?
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor to the Director.
Yeah, so I believe these lodgements were placed just after the resolution of the council policy. So we did look at this. We had some prior advice before the investment policy. I'm just going back to double check the dates. But I believe we just got that in. We lodged that after the actual formalisation of the policy. So if you see on that column on the 16th of November.
Yep. And the policy was adopted on the was it 26th of October? Or when was the and the prior policy still had a 30% exposure to B-rate investments anyway. The new policy only allowed.
We'll get an answer from the General Manager.
Yeah.
General Manager.
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor, can we take that on notice?
Yes. Okay, that question will be taken on notice and reported back to the next council meeting.
Well, the problem is that
you're speaking against the motion or asking a further question.
No, I'll propose an amendment to first of all, this should be referred to the Audit Committee, Audit Risk and Improvement Committee, to have a look at this issue and understand what processes are in place to stop this from happening, because I propose...
No, don't speak to the motion. What is the amendment? You're talking about having...
Okay, yeah, so I will refer... my amendment is receive and noted, number one. Number two, refer this report to the Audit Risk in the next meeting of the Audit Risk and Improvement Committee, including, you know, the process of that is undertaken here. You can word that however you like, but it's obviously something that needs to be looked at. And I suppose that we get a... I mean, unfortunately, the next meeting of council is not for a few months, but I suppose that councils get an update on you know, what action is taken to bring council's investments in line with its adopted policy, and that would have to be done, I suppose, once it's dealt with.
Yeah.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, we can provide an update to councillors before February.
I think it would probably be good to have it.
Okay, so we need to get a seconder for the Councillor Miles. Just as clarity, Madam General Manager, if we somebody moved the motion, or was that moved, or
I moved an amendment.
So I moved the motion as it was. Yes. So I need to accept the amendment. I'd like to get some, before I do that, I'd like to get some clarification of the implications of referring it directly now to the Audit Risk Committee before we get some information back from council. So through you, Mr. Mayor, and also when that committee might next meet.
Madam General Manager.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Two parts. I believe Councillor Collins is asking that a report be referred to the next ARIC meeting, Audit Risk and Improvement Committee meeting, and they are scheduled to meet, if you could just bear with me.
In February.
February the 17th In the interim, we'll provide further information as Councillor on Councillor Collins's questions.
Okay, so we have an amendment. Councillor McLaughlin, do you wish to accept the amendment or do you wish to put it to the vote?
So well, I guess my question is to Councillor Collins, why are you reporting it to ARIC at this stage?
Well,
why do you wish it to be referred to ARIC at this stage?
Councillor Collins, can you answer the question?
Yeah, so as you remember, a couple of months ago, I recommended forming an investment advisory committee to review the governance structures around this. And all councillors, apart from Councillor Miles, voted against that. And basically what we've got here is a situation where $6 million has been invested against the guidelines that have been adopted by council. So there's no, we need to understand the governance and processes in place, because we've now adopted, the situation now is that we've got more than half of our available cash assets in B-rated investments, whereas the policy we've adopted and put on exhibition and put out to the community only says we can do 30%. And so our structures around here have broken, it needs to be looked at to understand why it happened and how it won't happen again.
Councillor McLaughlin,
serious issue.
Councillor McLaughlin, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
So we have an amendment moved by Councillor Collins. Is there any further debate in relation? Is there a second? It was Councillor Miles. Yep. Is there any further debate in relation to the amendment? Yes, Councillor.
I will speak to it because I haven't spoken to it yet.
You've done a lot of speaking. Councillor Sanderson.
I wonder whether we can see the amendment in writing.
Yes. Could we have that up on the screen, please? I think there was a point in there to receive and note the report.
And
this report referred to the ARIC meeting to include the process. I can't. Could we move the faces? Oh, it's up there. Sorry.
Well, I believe there was a point 3 as well, Mr. Mayor, about updating councillors prior to the February meeting.
Yes. Okay. Is that correct, Councillor Collins?
Yes, and I actually think it should be this week, just to understand, tomorrow.
Yeah, okay, by Friday, the 18th. Yes, Councillor Sanderson.
The original motion is incorrect. I didn't second it.
Didn't you? Okay. Who seconded the?
I thought it was Councillor McLaughlin was involved, wasn't it?
The Councillor McLaughlin moved the motion.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Fair enough. I'll accept that.
Okay. And you're the seconder.
Okay.
Okay. Righto. We've got an amendment which we've discussed. Is there any further need to discuss it? Right, a reply, Councillor Collins.
Yeah. No. I will just say that it is important, as our role here is to understand what's going on here and not just accepting these reports and then just on their face value, actually considering them and understanding what their implications are. Now, councillors rejected a policy that I brought here to implement tighter governance structures around this area. That was rejected by this council, and we're now in a situation where we've had a significant breakdown in the system here. So perhaps I would just remind councillors that I'm not going to bring back the proposal for an investment advisory committee at this time. It's too close to the new council being formed. So I don't think it's really now going to get off the ground, but it's disappointing because I think situations like this would have been avoided if that policy would have been implemented. So,
okay. The General Manager, do you wish to comment?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So councillors will provide a response to Councillor Collins's questions. And as I understand, Councillor Collins, the question is, have we breached the council's adopted policy for investments in terms of B rated as well as the volume of the amount?
Per institution, and also the time horizon for the ones that are 12 months or more.
In light of, and also we'll clarify the timing and content of the previous policy, investment policy, and the newly adopted investment policy. Is that?
And I do understand that if
Councillor Collins, I think we need to be mindful that there is an amendment on the table which has now been spoken to. The General Manager has just provided advice if the amendment is passed of what action the staff will take. So that concludes debate on the amendment.
A question, Mr. Mayor. Do you think maybe I have something important to say?
You had right of reply, and once you have right of reply, there's no further debate.
Remove to suspend standing order so I can make a comment. I think, considering that I've picked this up, I move that.
Councillor Collins, I'm putting.
It's a disgrace. You're trying to silence me, and I found $6 million that has been misplaced. And I asked one simple question.
Councillor Collins, point of order.
What's the point of order, Mr. Mayor?
Is that we have now reached the point where we need to take a vote on the amendment with no further debate.
Does anyone have any questions?
I don't. You've had right of reply. I'm sorry. That is it.
Ridiculous.
I put the amendment. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried. That becomes the motion.
Unanimously.
So we now wish to discuss the motion. The General Manager's advised that there will be further advice this week in relation to it. If there's no further debate, yes, Councillor Miles.
Sorry, just it would be helpful if it was by institution and by obviously deposit date and maturity date, because we're going to have to fix this. If it's in breach of our policy, which went out to public consultation, we're going to have to amend this. We're going to have to deal with this somehow. So it's actually a bit more complex of a problem if we're in breach of our policy than I think is understood here, because it means that there's $6 odd million which can't be in B-rated institutions, that needs to somehow be moved out, and that might mean breaking facilities prior to their maturity, which may cost a lot of money, like a significant amount of money.
Does the General Manager wish to comment?
I understand that it said that it has to be done by Friday, but this is a little complex, this one.
General Manager.
So, Mr. Mayor, we need to establish first if that's the case, and if that is the case, then what are the options? But I need the Director to review the information, and we'll come back to the Council.
Okay. Is there any further debate? If not, I'll put the motion as amended. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried. There'll be further advice to councillors by the end of the week from staff in relation to that motion. That now takes us to a series of matters dealing with development. Do you wish to take 4.11, 4.12 and 4.11 and 4.12 together? Move Councillor McLaughlin. No, she doesn't. No.
I just need to leave the 4.12. I've indicated the declaration of interest.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. Okay, we'll do all of them separately. 4.11. Motion. Councillor Miles moves the recommendation. Is there a seconder? Councillor Crassoy. Any discussion? Put the motion. All those in favour, against, declare it carried unanimously. And now we move to 12, where Councillor McLaughlin will leave the room, and which has been done. So in relation to 4.12, development applications determined under delegated authority. Is there a motion in relation to the matter? Councillor Collins, are you moving the motion, the recommendation? Yes. Is there a seconder? Councillor Prasoy. Any debate? Put the motion. All those in favour, declare it carried unanimously. Could we please ask Councillor McLaughlin to return? Is there a facility for that? Is she in a waiting room? Or... That brings us, when Councillor McLaughlin has returned. Thank you, Councillor McLaughlin. That matter has been, the recommendation was approved by Council. We move to 7.1. There is a, I forgot, there was a speaker in relation to this matter who wants the matter, their presentation read out, and that's from Mr. Max McFarlane and representing the Chamber of Commerce. Is that right in this case, or as a personal citizen?
On behalf of the Chamber.
Okay, thank you.
So Mr. Max McFarland, dear councillors, on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce and regarding the Love Gladesville Facebook group. The Love Facebook group, Love, was established in good faith and through collaboration with the Hunters Hill Council, Ryde Council and the Gladesville Chamber of Commerce, has become an amazing source of local community pride, love and opportunity of the Gladesville area and local businesses. Representatives from each side volunteered their time to get the group off the ground, but none more so than Becco, who has been a driving force for its growth to 5,000 members and continued quality of conversation. We cannot thank Beck enough for her time, passion and energy she has contributed freely to the community. It would be a loss to have her no longer involved in something she created due to perceived conflicts. As with many Facebook groups, there are often comments and posts that other people in the group dislike. This is a normal part of discourse within a community, and we only set 2 rules for the Love Gladesville group. 1, keep it kind and keep it local. For the most part, these 2 rules have guided a healthy discussion from the group members. You can frequently see lovely appreciation posts from Gladesville and other close areas with people posting photos of things they love and people liking and commenting about how much they love them as well. What an incredible atmosphere that can create. It has also drawn much needed attention to local businesses when users on their own proactive volition will tag and post positive reviews and comments of a business. This is so valuable for local business within Gladesville, and when we see this, we see the group working to achieve a core goal. The group also gives users the opportunity to ask for recommendations on products and services, which has directly resulted in business within the local community. Unfortunately, there are also times when it can get unruly and comments, people and posts need to be removed. You have no idea how different the group's tone and content would be if it was not for the admins and moderators. The volunteers who have admin and moderator rights on the group do their best, but they are volunteers. It is worth noting again how much Becco contributes to this group through her consistent hours every week moderating the group, and has been a key guardrail keeping the group as kind and local as it is. It is unlikely another single person would be able to match her work if she were to not continue to help. While the other admins and moderators will continue to do their best, we also believe that the conduct of the group to date has been reasonable and well done.
Thank you. So this is questions with notice by Councillor Collins. There's a series of questions and a series of responses. Councillor Collins, do you accept that?
I would just briefly speak to it, if I may, Mr. Mayor.
What is the motion on the table?
The motion is to receive and note the question with notice.
Yes, okay. You wish to speak to it. Is there a second? Sorry.
Yeah.
Councillor Miles. Yeah, go ahead, Councillor.
First of all, I'd like to echo the comments of Mr. Max McFarlane. I think council have done a terrific job building this group, and I think it's a fantastic asset to the community. The issues that came to light for me when I posted something which unleashed a little bit of fury from certain people, which is fine. It raised the issue of council as a government body moderating discussion and comments. Now, whilst it's done in good faith, I think that if council is going to maintain a management aspect of this, we need to have something a little bit more robust than keep it kind, keep it local. For a period of time, I was prevented from actually posting anything there. I don't post much there, but I had a leash on me, so I couldn't post without someone, an admin allowing it to happen. And it just raises the question, can a government body really get involved in that? So there's no motion coming of this, and it is not a criticism of where it's at. I would just like staff to perhaps have a look at, reconsider how the rules are implemented, how consistency is maintained, and under what grounds it's different for the chamber. They can delete whatever they want. Under what grounds? Because I understand that a post was removed that was made by a member of the community and was told that one post about the library was enough, and it just didn't sit very well with me, even though I understand the fury of the unleashed. So all I'm asking is that perhaps council, maybe as part of adopting a social, either pass it on or have another look at their social media policy and understand how we can maintain good faith with the community and not have something that could be perceived as council, as a government body, moderating what can and can't be said. So it's a tricky line. So that's all I have to say about that. But it's a great group, mostly great people, and I'd like to see it continue to grow and prosper. And I would prefer it to be away from council. But if council maintains, I just ask that we be mindful of those issues.
Okay, is there any further debate in relation to the receive and note? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, declare it carried unanimously. We now need to move into council in the committee of the whole because we have a confidential matter that needs to be addressed. Councillor Sanderson has proposed. Is there a seconder? Councillor Miles. I now put that. All those in favour, carried unanimously. We will now have to close down our